Aoi stands by an open window, a white bird perched on the sill. Her thoughts drift to a memory, Blanc, lying injured on the ground, a deep wound visible on his chest. She recalls telling him that while it took time, she was glad he had finally found his own path. As the memory fades, the bird takes flight, carrying a message bearing his name. Meanwhile, in the bustling marketplace of the royal capital, a young man with light, spiky hair is greeted warmly by a stall vendor. The vendor asks if he's not with his mother, but the young man clarifies that his companion is busy chatting elsewhere. He then spots a familiar face in the crowd and calls out, "Aoi." His call is lost as a sudden shadow falls over the market. A young girl gasps, her attention drawn upward as a man points to the sky, questioning the identity of a rapidly approaching shape. Before anyone can react, a blinding flash of light washes over the marketplace. The light gives way to a horrifying sight. A colossal black dragon, wreathed in shadow and smoke, descends upon the capital. Its arrival brings immediate destruction, turning streets into rubble and filling the air with the screams of the terrified citizens. It hovers above the chaos, a truly bizarre and terrifying creature. While one wing is a familiar, bat-like appendage, the other is a massive, intricately patterned butterfly wing, a strange beauty juxtaposed with the surrounding destruction. Panic grips the city's leadership. A man in official dress bellows for his forces to form a defensive line, his voice cracking with fear. Nearby, the young girl understands the futility of their situation. She recognizes this creature as one of the Demon King's first lieutenants, an enemy they have no hope of surviving against. In that moment of despair, a disciplined unit appears. The Royal Mage Corps has arrived, their presence bringing a wave of relief. Their mass commander wastes no time, raising his staff and roaring the command to prepare offensive magic. In unison, the mages unleash a torrent of power, firing a massive magical volley at the beast. The volley of spells converges, striking the black dragon in a direct, concussive blast. The creature is completely enveloped in a blinding explosion of magical energy. As the light from the detonation fills the sky, a moment of tense silence hangs over the crowd below. A single voice cuts through the ringing in their ears, asking the question on everyone's mind. Did we get it? Through the dissipating smoke, a man in the crowd raises a triumphant fist. He declares with certainty that even a beast as powerful as the Black Dragon could not possibly have withstood such a concentrated assault. The Royal Mage Corps' grand assault had failed. The Black Dragon emerged from the smoke completely unscathed, shocking the mages. As civilians cowered, the dragon let out a furious roar, commanding the soldiers to move as they scrambled to erect defensive spells. Before their defenses could fully form, the dragon struck. The magical barrier shattered instantly under the overwhelming force, the commander's desperate order to deploy coming far too late. The shockwave sent the mages of the Royal Corps tumbling helplessly through the air, their formation completely broken. As the dust settled, it revealed a horrifying sight. The Black Dragon had transformed, now larger and more demonic in appearance. It loomed over the ruined city, declaring that this was the end. On the ground, the surviving civilians, including Aoi, looked on in utter despair, realizing they stood no chance. The beast roared again, but its cry was met by an unexpected presence. A lone, hooded figure appeared, standing between the dragon and the people. With a calm gesture, he invoked a powerful magic, the seal of the demon-breaking barrier. His spell manifested not as a shield, but as countless pillars of light that began to descend from the heavens, the grace of the blessed rain. The miraculous rain fell upon the wounded. A man looked at his hands in disbelief as his injuries vanished. The crowd began to notice the healing effect, their eyes turning toward the sky where they spotted the lone figure responsible. Aoi and the young girl beside her also felt the restorative power wash over them, their expressions of fear turning to wide-eyed astonishment. The crowd's confusion turned to awe as recognition dawned. Whispers spread like wildfire. The Black Emperor. He was known to them as the strongest grade 0 adventurer. As he descended, the people hailed him as their savior, their hope renewed. He faced the draconic monstrosity, ignoring the adulation from below. Dark energy coalesced in his outstretched hand as he prepared to unleash his own offensive power, the Divine Annihilation Spear. His initial attack strikes the Black Dragon, but the creature merely roars in defiance, having withstood the blow. The Black Emperor observes this resilience, realizing a single strike will not be enough and that he must press his assault. Undeterred, he resolves to simply continue attacking until the beast falls. A multitude of dark, crackling spheres of energy materialize around him, filling the air with immense power. Before he can launch his volley, the dragon retaliates. It unleashes a torrent of destructive energy from its gaping maw, engulfing the area where the hooded figure hovers. The blast clears, revealing him completely unscathed, shielded by tendrils of dark power. He coolly notes that such a tactic will not work on him a second time. He raises a hand, gathering a massive concentration of volatile energy. He vows that this time, the dragon will not escape. The condensed spheres of power slam into the Black Dragon's body, engulfing it in a series of brilliant, destructive explosions that tear its form asunder. As the light from the final blast subsides, the black dragon's colossal body dissolves into harmless motes of light. Far below, the citizens of the town watch in stunned silence, their eyes fixed on the lone figure floating in the sky. Their silence is shattered by a thunderous, joyous cheer for their salvation. High above the celebrating city, the Black Emperor turns away, his duty fulfilled. He flies away from the city, a distant silhouette against the sky, leaving the awestruck crowd to stare after him, grappling with the incredible power they just witnessed. Among the relieved citizens, the young girl he saved looks up with a radiant, grateful smile. A man nearby laments that they didn't even get a chance to thank their savior, the Black Emperor. At the Adventurers Guild headquarters, the figure known as the Black Emperor arrives. A guild receptionist calls out his title as he approaches the counter, confirming that his task is complete. He states his intention to now discuss the request that was arranged. The receptionist is overcome with awe, exclaiming that he actually defeated the Black Dragon, a feat widely considered impossible. The Black Emperor calmly replies that this victory was the sole purpose of all his training. Her expression shows dawning comprehension. He confirms that this was the deal. If he took down the dragon, he could finally quit being a grade 0 adventurer. The receptionist gasps at the implication, while another guild employee in the background reacts with wide-eyed shock. His voice then rings out, formally announcing to the stunned guild hall that he is retiring from grade 0. He is done. The crowd is frozen in disbelief. The shock of his retirement sends waves across the world. The title of grade 0 adventurer is held by only 8 people, the strongest among humanity. Nations and guilds scramble to stop him or lure him to their side. But no matter what they try, they cannot trace his steps. 3 years later, the Black Emperor has vanished completely. In a distant, peaceful-looking town, the man once known by that title arrives, breathing a sigh of relief, having finally reached his destination. He stands unhooded, his iconic armor replaced with simple traveler's clothes and a sword on his back. He declares it is time to start over, to begin a new life. Thus, the legend of the Black Emperor ends, and the story of the strongest jobless man is born. Inside the Adventurers Guild, a newly minted metal plate is presented. It is an adventurer license for Blanc, grade 10. The guild receptionist, Reena, explains that the mana-infused plate is his official license and must be kept safe for accepting and reporting quests. After a late introduction, she formally welcomes him to Claret in the kingdom of Re-Rate. Blanc quietly declines to ask any questions. Outside, Blanc takes in the view of his new home. He finds Claret to be a nice town, a stark contrast to his former base in the Radiola Empire. He reflects that while the capital, home to the Adventurer Guild headquarters, is prosperous, he grew tired of the unbearable foot traffic and being constantly crushed by crowds. He recalls the 3 years that have passed since he left that life behind. To hide his identity as the Black Emperor, he had to adopt a different combat style, choosing the sword. It took him a long while to fully master it. Now, in this new life, he hopes he will not need a weapon at all. Back in the present, a gatekeeper greets him, noting his successful registration. Blanc thanks the man for the earlier directions to the guild. Another adventurer observes that since the town is on the edge of the demon forest, more adventurers are always a good thing. With his license in hand, Blanc finally feels like a proper grade 10 adventurer. The other adventurer elaborates on the demon forest, explaining that monsters have been appearing more than usual, making even simple herb gathering dangerous. He reveals the reason. The territory of the second demon king is said to be right next door. A look of grim satisfaction crosses Blanc's face as he clenches his fist. This is exactly why he chose this country. He realizes this means the kinds of jobs labeled as grunt work will surely pile up here. The other adventurer notes his sudden enthusiasm. But before taking on a request, Blanc has something else to do first. His first stop is not the quest board, but a building with a sign that reads Real Estate Office. He approaches the door, the bell jingling as he enters. Inside, a welcoming, elderly agent greets him. Without hesitation, Blanc states his purpose. He would like to buy a house. The agent smiles warmly and invites him to proceed. The agent begins to explain the local market. Most adventurers focus on monster hunting, which means their money goes into gear upkeep. As a result, they usually live in inns. Owning a home is rare for a solo adventurer, though some elite parties do purchase their own houses. He recalls his master's words, acknowledging that while one can simply rent a room in an inn, having a true place to return to is a valuable thing. Back in the present, the real estate agent confirms he has something suitable. When asked for preferences, Blanc states that the bigger the house, the better, and that a bath is a must. He internally reflects that after 3 years, he still doesn't quite understand the feeling of freedom, but decides he might as well enjoy it. The agent leads him from the office, explaining that the property is on the outskirts of town, near the plains. He cautions that he cannot promise a complete lack of monster activity in that area. Unfazed, Blanc agrees to go take a look. Inside the spacious, well-furnished house, the agent notes that the only downside is its distance from the city center. For Blanc, who is used to living deep in the mountains, this is nothing. He immediately declares that he'll take it, much to the agent's astonishment. The agent, still processing the quick decision, explains they've struggled to find a buyer due to certain circumstances, and asks how Blanc would like to handle payment. Without hesitation, Blanc states he will pay in full and produces a heavy pouch of gold, stunning the man into silence. As the agent stares, dumbfounded, at the payment, Blanc crosses his arms with a slight blush, realizing he has somehow made the situation awkward. Later, relaxing in his new home, Blanc reflects that lugging around 1,000 gold coins, worth 10 million belks, was a pain. His small companion retorts that for such a nice house, it's a bargain compared to the 10 billion for slaying the Black Dragon, prompting Blanc to tell it not to compare the two. He pulls out his new adventure license. He considers that the house might be a bit large for just himself, but concludes that cramped spaces never suited him anyway. Holding the grade 10 license, a faint smile plays on his lips. He is at last a grade 10 adventurer. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Guild, a rumor has already begun to circulate. An adventurer at the counter expresses his disbelief that the kid who just registered was supposedly bumped up to grade 7 already. At the Adventurers Guild, the hooded man stands as others gossip about him. The elf, Aoi, leans in close, advising him to ignore the rabble. She tells him not to take adventuring lightly, as he'll eventually screw up, but that in this merit-based world, he should just shut them up with results. He quietly acknowledges her words. The murmurs continue around them. Onlookers identify him as the Black Emperor, marveling at how he completed every request without complaint and shot straight to grade C with incredible speed. A memory flashes of him standing over the defeated Black Dragon. As he stands silently, Aoi whispers his other name, Blanc. The name triggers a memory of his master. He recalls being given his final task as a disciple, to slay the Black Dragon, servant of the first Demon King. His master promised that once the task was done, he would be free to go. The younger man, his face unobscured, could only question what it meant to be free. Back in the present, he adjusts his hood, lost in thought. He had accepted the mission, resolving to follow his master's orders as the Black Emperor, even if he didn't fully grasp their meaning. His thoughts are interrupted at the guild counter. The receptionist, Reena, informs him that another noble has requested him by name. She remarks on his incredible reputation for never failing a request, which has made him a legend. He replies flatly that he only does what he is told. Nearby, a group of young children celebrate the completion of their own request. The commotion from the children draws his attention. Reena apologizes for the noise, explaining they are new grade 10 recruits who just registered. As a guild official tells the children to stop running, the hooded man asks who they are. He watches the young adventurers as Reena notes that he, too, started at a low grade. She explains that since the kids can't fight monsters yet, they build experience with grunt work like gathering herbs and city cleaning. He internally questions the value of such tasks, believing an adventurer's true purpose is to slay the Demon King's beasts and carve paths through unexplored lands. Despite his internal dismissal of their work, the children approach him with bright smiles. They thank him for helping them the other day. He seems pleased, telling them to call him if they need anything else, though he still privately considers their activities to be mere grunt work. His perspective begins to shift as he considers the results of their efforts. Their seemingly small jobs have great meaning. The herbs they gather become medicine for the sick, and by keeping the streets clean, they prevent outbreaks of disease. Their work helps not just adventurers, but the everyday people of the city. This realization strikes him profoundly. With his hood now down, his eyes are wide with a newfound understanding. He had been so focused on killing, on the singular, grand purpose assigned to him, that he had never noticed any of the smaller, vital contributions that sustain the world around him. He stood alone, contemplating the nature of his existence. It was true that adventurers were meant to slay monsters, and in that regard, he had done his part, eliminating high-profile targets for the nobility. But he was forced to wonder what that work had truly meant. His thoughts drifted to the powerful beasts he had slain. They were hunted in territories far beyond human civilization, their corpses becoming mere trophies and collectibles for the greedy. These monsters, which would never have been targeted without a formal request, never truly helped anyone. He questioned his purpose, wondering who the real errand boy was in this entire arrangement. In stark contrast, he pictured the smiling faces of the townspeople and the novice adventurers. Their simple work, the kind that actually helped someone, was the foundation of the community's well-being. He remembered the bitter reality. As a grade 0 adventurer, the guild's rules would never allow him to take on such low-grade jobs, even as the noble requests never stopped. Just then, a clear voice cut through his brooding. Blanc. The name, spoken by Aoi, struck him with the force of a revelation. In that instant, he saw a path to the one thing he truly wanted, freedom. As if she had expected this all along, Aoi presented him with a new adventure registration card. On it was his name, Blanc. Holding the card, he felt that his heart could finally begin to heal. He reflected on his past, a time when he killed without feeling, numb to everything, not even knowing who he was. His memories only began from the moment he was with his master. He briefly questioned his own identity before dismissing the thought. It didn't matter anymore. He had a new start. A young man sits at a desk, holding a new identification card. He introduces himself as Blanc, a grade 10 adventurer, sighing in relief. He then gets up and heads for the door, deciding that his first day of freedom is the perfect time to pick up a request. As he steps through the doorway, his thoughts turn to his former master, and he wonders about their current circumstances. Meanwhile, in a stately office, a man with a thick mustache sits behind a desk, facing a woman in a dark, formal uniform. He acknowledges her group's persistence, a fact she coolly confirms. She leans forward with a confident smirk, demanding to be told the location of the Black Emperor. Her identity is revealed: Sword Saint Klul. In response, the man, Chairman Vulcan, slams his fist on the desk. He shouts that it has been 3 years and that they should give up already. He tells her they won't leave, questioning their obsession and suggesting they use a different special grade adventurer. His frustration boils over as he accuses Klul of being the Black Emperor's master and points out the mountain of requests that have piled up for him. His outburst is met with a simple, mocking laugh. Klul retorts that it's more likely that he is the one who can't make them leave. Her eyes narrow menacingly. "You dare?" she asks, her voice low. An immense pressure suddenly fills the room, causing Vulcan to gasp and sweat, unable to breathe despite being a grade 1 adventurer. Looming over him, Klul explains that she's only present due to old obligations and that evading his surveillance would be trivial. This, she declares, is the difference between grade 1 and grade 0. Vulcan, clutching his chest, argues that this is precisely why they need him. He is a special grade adventurer who still accepts their jobs, which Klul dismissively calls errands. Desperately, Vulcan asks if he is wrong. He is held fast by the Sword Saint, who continues her tirade. She accuses him and others like him of being leeches who ran the Black Emperor ragged, taking advantage of the fact that he never had a will of his own. She reveals that she was the one who pushed him to become an adventurer, hoping he would find his own strength and a reason to live. She leans closer, her gaze sharp and menacing, declaring that the Black Emperor was never meant to be his tool. With a hint of satisfaction, she adds that now, he has finally found a will of his own. He cries out in protest, but she silences him with a cold glare, asserting that they have no right to interfere in the matter. She turns her back on him, ignoring his desperate shout that their conversation is not over. With a forceful slam of the door, she departs, leaving him alone in the office. Walking down the hallway, her long cape trailing behind her, she clutches her head, muttering about the headache the confrontation has given her. She considers the situation, deciding that she has done her part for now. Her thoughts drift to the young man at the center of it all, wondering how he is faring. A small smile touches her lips as she concludes that as long as he is okay, that is all that matters. Her brief moment of contentment gives way to a new resolve. A sly, determined smile spreads across her face as she decides it is time to see Blanc for herself. Meanwhile, completely unaware of the Sword Saint's intentions, Blanc stands before the Adventurers Guild quest board. Filled with boyish enthusiasm, he eagerly contemplates which grade 10 quest to choose. And so his first errand begins. Inside the Adventurers Guild, the young man, known as Blanc, studies the request board. He observes the numerous slips still posted for tasks like town cleaning, shopping errands, and lost cat searches, concluding that the lowest grade 10 jobs are not very popular among adventurers. He decides this is as good a place as any to start his first job. Nearby, other adventurers discuss the board. One notes that while high-rank quests are scarce, even among the lower ranks, monster hunts are always the first to be taken, with such hunt-type requests beginning at grade 9. Having made his choice, he approaches the counter with a request slip. The receptionist, Reena, places a small, glowing box on the counter. Much to his confusion, she confirms he is accepting the Aria grass collection request and takes his license to process it. He asks to see a sample of the grass, privately wondering about the strange magic box. A moment later, she returns his license, informing him the request has been accepted and logged. He marvels at this, realizing this is how normal requests are handled. As he examines the sample, identifying it by its twin-leaf split, a sudden, sharp pain pierces his skull. He stumbles, clutching his head as the receptionist looks on with concern, asking if he is all right. The pain brings with it an unwelcome torrent of information. Knowledge he should not possess, the habitat of Aria grass, its proper harvesting method, how to refine it into medicine, and even how to brew poison from it, floods his mind. He straightens up, brushing off her concern by claiming it's just a recurring headache he'll never get used to. Thanking her for the sample, he says he will get started right away. Reena wishes him the best of luck on his first job. Leaving the guild hall, he stands at the edge of a forest, his resolve firm. He declares his intent to find the Aria grass and steps into the woods. Deep within the trees, he quickly spots his target. He kneels, realizing with his newfound awareness that the herb is growing abundantly all around him. He begins to harvest, his actions guided by the mysterious knowledge from his headache. He recalls the precise instructions. Cut the stalk cleanly near the base to allow it to regrow, and wrap the cut end in a damp cloth to maintain freshness. He executes the task perfectly. He considers the creature before him a simple slime. Though weak, it is still a spawn of a demon king, hardwired with an instinct to hate and attack humans. He knows that dropping one's guard against such a creature can be fatal, as they can silently sneak up and suffocate their prey. As if to prove his point, the slime lunges forward. The attack is over in an instant, leaving only the shattered remains of the slime's core as proof of its defeat. He looks down at the remnants, remarking that the creature had picked the wrong person to mess with. With a dismissive sound, he turns away. He dismisses the encounter entirely, his attention immediately returning to his herb-gathering quest. Spotting more of the plants nearby, he happily exclaims that he's hit the jackpot and continues his work. After some time, his bag is full. He returns to the city, where a gatekeeper acknowledges his large haul. Sniffing the contents, Blanc feels satisfied with his work for the day. He reflects on his enjoyment of such simple, mindless tasks, though he worries that he may have collected too many and hopes the guild will still purchase the entire lot. He proceeds to the Adventurers Guild and presents the large bag of herbs to Reena for verification. She stares, wide-eyed and astonished at the sheer volume. Blanc admits with a slight smile that he got carried away and gathered more than was needed. Her surprise gives way to amusement. Blinking, she remarks that he is a strange one for getting so engrossed in simple herb gathering. When he questions her, she just smiles playfully and tells him she will verify the delivery, asking him to wait a moment. As he waits, his attention is drawn to a conversation between two nearby adventurers. One asks the other if he has heard the recent rumors about the demon forest acting strangely. His companion confirms, adding that there's talk of high-tier monsters showing up near the entrance. The conversation continues, with one adventurer expressing disbelief that monsters could have entered the city itself, as the gate guards would surely be raising an alarm. His companion concedes the point, agreeing it must be just a rumor. Their banter continues, with one man teasing the other for being a coward. He reminds him that the demon forest is said to be home to the third demon king, and is supposedly the most peaceful of such domains. The other adventurer defensively retorts that he isn't scared. As Blanc listens to their exchange with a serious expression, Reena calls out his name, interrupting his thoughts. At the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist Reena is overjoyed. She exclaims that his work was truly amazing, noting that everyone was shocked by the pristine condition of the Heria grass he collected, especially for a first-timer. With a bright smile, she tells him that thanks to his efforts, they can finally make up for the supply shortage, declaring him a huge help. She formally congratulates him on completing his first request, holding out his payment. Just as he reaches for it, she stops, suddenly remembering something she had almost forgotten. He accepts the reward with a slight, confident smile, simply saying, "Thank you." Later that night, as he walks through the town, two adventurers he passed earlier recognize him. They whisper amongst themselves, pointing out that he was the one who had saved them. He overhears their hushed comments with a knowing smirk. From a rooftop overlooking the city, he feels a swell of pride. He declares himself a certified errand boy and resolves to take on another request the following day. The view pans across the quiet, tiled roofs of the sleeping town. His peaceful observation is cut short. He leaps across the rooftops, his attention fixed on a target below. After stumbling slightly, his gaze locks onto a small creature, and a predatory grin spreads across his face as he thinks, "Found you." In a fluid motion, he launches himself forward, snatching a startled cat right out of the air. He holds the furiously struggling animal, which kicks and meows in protest. He examines it, confirming it's the pink collar calico he was looking for, and mentally marks the request as complete. He can't help but note that, for some reason, animals just don't seem to like him. After returning the cat to its grateful owner, he reflects on the experience. He feels worse for the cat having been found by him than for any trouble it caused. He concludes that he should probably think twice before taking such jobs, recalling that monsters also attack him with unusual bloodlust. He sighs, feeling dejected that this happens even when he hasn't done anything. He arrived at his next job, where an older man in a hat and scarf greeted him warmly. The man introduced himself as Belmo, head of the Belmo Trading Company, and confirmed that Blanc was the adventurer who had taken his request. Belmo noted Blanc's slightly disheveled appearance with some concern, but Blanc simply stated his name and assured him it was nothing to worry about. Belmo then gestured toward a large wooden wagon, beginning to explain that the job simply involved loading their goods. He elaborated that these kinds of manual labor jobs have poor pay and that adventurers avoid them due to the risk of being charged for damaged goods. In fact, Blanc was the only one who had agreed to take it. Unfazed, Blanc replied that he didn't care about the pay and could cover any fines, though he had no intention of being careless. Belmo sighed, lamenting that more adventurers don't take on requests to help the local community, but admitted he understood that fighting monsters was more exciting. Apologizing for venting, he instructed everyone to begin working with care. Blanc simply acknowledged the order. Without hesitation, he walked up to a massive wooden crate and, to the utter shock of Belmo and the other workers, hoisted it effortlessly into the air with a single hand. He then proceeded to stack several more, remarking that they felt quite light. A flustered Belmo, struggling to comprehend the sight, could only stammer for him to start packing them from the back of the wagon. As Blanc carried the impossible load, the other workers stared in disbelief. Their shock quickly turned into competitive motivation, and they rushed to get to work, determined not to be outdone by the skinny guy. Glancing back at their sudden fervor, Blanc calmly advised them not to overdo it. In the middle of a bustling street, a heavy crate slips from its hoist. Cries of alarm fill the air as a young girl and an older man are caught directly underneath. With a sudden burst of speed, A dark-clad figure, Blanc, lunges forward, catching the massive object just before it crushes them. He holds the weight with ease, his expression calm as he turns to the two civilians he just shielded. He quietly asks if they are okay. The man and the girl, still trembling from the shock, can only stammer their thanks. The girl cries with relief. Blanc simply smiles, expressing his gladness that they are both unharmed. Dismissing their gratitude, he tells the older man, Belmo, that it's fine as long as no one was hurt. He then directs Belmo to check on the condition of the goods. The man quickly inspects the crate and reports no visible damage. Belmo, looking immensely relieved, clarifies that Blanc saved more than just the goods. He saved the workers as well. On behalf of his entire crew, he offers Blanc their heartfelt thanks. Impressed, Belmo remarks that Blanc is far stronger than he appears. Though Blanc tries to downplay it, Belmo follows up with a surprising proposition. He asks Blanc to consider working for his company instead of continuing as an adventurer. He politely declines the offer, explaining that while he appreciates it, he has grown quite fond of his current lifestyle. Belmo accepts his decision with a good-natured sigh, telling Blanc he is always welcome should he change his mind. Walking away, Blanc reflects on the encounter. For someone who had only known how to fight, being praised for helping people feels deeply rewarding. He realizes with certainty that he is truly glad to be a grade 10 adventurer, finding fulfillment even in simple errands. His peaceful contemplation is shattered upon his return to the guild. The receptionist, Reena, greets him with a beaming smile and congratulates him on his promotion to grade 9. Blanc stares, utterly baffled, and instinctively rejects the promotion. He protests, insisting he wants to remain grade 10, but Reena explains that's not how it works. The guild has a policy of automatic promotion up to grade 8. Grade 10 is merely a provisional status, and once a certain number of jobs are completed, promotion is mandatory. As the reality sinks in, that his dream of a quiet, low-rank life is impossible, Blanc collapses onto the counter in utter despair. He lifts his head from the counter, questioning Reena on why he's being promoted when adventurers should be serving the public. The guild receptionist patiently explains that their greatest mission is to expand safe territory for humanity by clearing out monster-infested zones. She points out that even weak monsters, which grade 9 adventurers are tasked with exterminating, pose a real threat to civilians. The weight of her words strikes him. As he processes this, realizing he'd only been thinking of himself, Reena offers a comforting smile. She clarifies that just because he is now grade 9 doesn't mean he can no longer take grade 10 requests. He can, she assures him, keep gathering herbs just like always. The information leaves him momentarily stunned. His expression explodes with joy. He eagerly asks for confirmation. He can still take low-level requests. Reena playfully chides him not to get too smug about it. Overcome with relief, he concedes that she's right and the promotion is totally fine. With a sigh, Reena moves to finalize the process, asking for his adventurer license to complete the rank change. She hands back his updated license, congratulating him on reaching grade 9. But his relief has vanished, replaced by a look of visible upset. Confused, Reena asks what's wrong, as she thought he was okay with it now. He admits that while he understands, he's still emotionally struggling with the change. Noticing his renewed distress, Reena presents him with a new request form. She explains that, precisely because he has just ranked up from grade 10, she has a specific assignment for him. It involves a newly registered grade 10 adventurer. At that moment, a cheerful young woman appears, beaming with excitement. She announces that he is the one who will be her mentor. The word hangs in the air, and Blanc stares back, utterly stunned and horrified by this new development. At the Adventurers Guild, a young woman with light hair tearfully begs the man, known as Blanc, not to refuse her, calling him mentor. Blanc, looking away uncomfortably, insists he isn't the mentoring type, pointing out that he's still a rookie himself. However, another guildswoman interjects, telling him to at least hear the girl out and declaring that this situation is partly his fault. He turns to the receptionist, Reena, demanding to know what she meant. She explains that because he's been accepting so many grade 10 requests, the other rookie adventurers are unable to rank up. Blanc protests that he hasn't been hoarding every single one, but Reena confirms that the problem lies with the quests he isn't taking. Realizing the implication, Blanc lets out a frustrated sigh. Reena elaborates that he has recently been avoiding animal-related requests, such as finding lost cats. She notes that the guild finds it odd, but these types of quests depend heavily on luck and have a low success rate, which in turn slows down promotion chances for others who need them. She quickly apologizes, clarifying that she doesn't mean to complain. In fact, the guild appreciates how he handles the overflow of errand requests, as the herbs he delivers are of excellent quality. However, she admits she never imagined his efficiency could cause problems. Hearing this, Blanc realizes with a pang of guilt that his efforts to be helpful have unintentionally made things more difficult for his peers. Bringing the conversation back to the matter at hand, Reena claps her hands together. She states that this unique situation is precisely why they are asking for this favor, noting that no one has ever been so fixated on grade 10 requests before him. She presents a formal request, offering compensation from the guild because his knowledge is valuable. With a hopeful smile, she formally asks him to share his skills and knowledge with others. Blanc makes a motion as if to snatch the document away, but she presses on. Reena asks if he will accept the mentorship role. Blanc pauses, deep in thought. He admits he doesn't mind teaching the skills themselves, but he internally questions whether he can truly pass on knowledge when he isn't even sure of its origin. After a moment, he sighs in resignation. All right, he concedes, reasoning that if he's the cause of the problem, he can't just ignore it. The young adventurer is ecstatic, thanking him profusely. She formally introduces herself to him. She beams, telling him there's no need for such formality. With a deep, earnest bow, she introduces herself as Arya. She declares that although she's inexperienced, she'll do her best under his care. Blanc is taken aback by her sheer enthusiasm, a stark contrast to the many adventurers who actively avoid these simple errand quests. Arya excitedly proclaims him a fellow errand lover comrade, leaving Blanc utterly bewildered. As Reena hands him a card, she tells him to take care of Arya, remarking that while he's a bit odd, his skills are legitimate. Arya cheers in agreement, ready to get started. He stands at the guild exit, quest paper in hand. As his new charge, Arya cheerfully bids farewell to the receptionist, Reena. Reena waves back from her desk, wishing them good luck on their outing. As they walk along a dirt path leading away from the city, he internally resolves that his first task is to teach her how to properly handle grade 10 herb gathering requests. Their first lesson begins in the woods. Blanc asks how much she already knows, prompting Arya to enthusiastically present a plant, confirming it's Heria grass. She asks him to call her just Arya, admitting that Heria grass is the only herb she's familiar with. He agrees, deciding to go through them one by one. He immediately corrects her harvesting method, explaining that she shouldn't just pull herbs out by the roots. Instead, he instructs her to cut the stem carefully, which allows the plant to regrow, and then wrap it in a damp cloth to preserve its freshness. Arya expresses her admiration for this simple but effective knowledge. She then questions why they don't simply use water-filled containers. Blanc dismisses the idea, explaining that while it's an option, Heria grass is too common to be worth the extra trouble and weight of carrying bulky containers. Arya acknowledges the logic in his reasoning. Arya's admiration grows, and she exclaims that he is just as amazing as the guild receptionist Reena had claimed. He pauses, noting that this basic harvesting method applies to many herbs, but her intense reaction makes him question if something is amiss. A realization dawns on her. She had thought she understood Heria grass, but had never considered the proper post-harvesting steps. She remarks that while some call grade 10 jobs errands, even simple herb gathering can't be done carelessly, and she eagerly asks for more instruction. Blanc agrees, stating that underestimating such tasks is a mistake. Pleased with her eagerness, he directs her attention to a plant near her feet, identifying it as lilac grass. As she jumps back in surprise, he explains that it's used for mana restoration and that only the soft upper part needs to be picked. He concludes with a warning, however, that one must be careful when using it. After completing their task in the woods, Blanc and Arya return to the Adventurers Guild. Inside, Arya asks if what he just said was a warning, but Blanc, looking puzzled, dismisses it as his own imagination. At the reception desk, the guild employee, Reena, beams and offers her congratulations on reaching grade 8. Blanc responds with a somewhat strained thank you. Arya celebrates exuberantly, exclaiming that her growth has been phenomenal ever since Blanc began mentoring her at grade 9. Reena then explains a crucial rule to a concerned Blanc. As long as he avoids the promotion test, he will never advance to grade 7. She adds that, more importantly, there's another matter to discuss. She continues, informing him that the trial mentorship is now being considered a regular part of beginner training. Blanc simply states he was glad to help. Reena leans in to confide that Arya was genuinely happy and that his single presence is more than enough. Hearing this, Blanc looks away, remarking dryly that it's a shame, as he bets she is heartbroken. He asks Reena to process the request. While he waits, nearby adventurers begin to whisper amongst themselves, identifying him as the infamous errand boy. Reena, meanwhile, smiles hopefully and asks if perhaps one day he will finally accept a combat request. The whispers spread. A young, spiky-haired adventurer asks another with a fur collar if the rumors are true. The older adventurer confirms that Blanc is the rookie who only takes on errands and refuses all combat quests, noting that the younger adventurer was promoted to grade 7 before Blanc, despite joining the guild later. The young adventurer reacts with shock. A third, stockier adventurer joins in, wondering what the point of being an adventurer is if one has no interest in leveling up or hunting monsters. He finds it odd that the guild seems to love Blanc anyway, even asking him to mentor the new girl. Reena overhears their talk and tries to reassure Blanc, telling him not to let them bother him because errands are also valuable to the guild. Blanc, however, is fixated on a different point, loudly complaining that it's not fair and questioning if his reputation is based on quality. He touches his head, genuinely perplexed and troubled by the realization that he already has a nickname. Reena simply stares, bewildered by his unexpected reaction. At the counter, Blanc watches silently as Reena takes her stamp and officially marks his request form as complete, finalizing the transaction. From her post at the guild counter, Reena observes the adventurer who has become the subject of so much talk, a small smile playing on her lips. Resting her chin on her hand, she quietly concludes that he is, indeed, a weirdo. Her quiet observation is interrupted by a cheerful voice. A fellow receptionist, Reena, leans in, her eyes fixed on the same adventurer. She confirms with a knowing smile that he is indeed the one from the rumors. With a joyful cry of Lena, Reena throws her arms around her friend in an enthusiastic hug. As they embrace, she comments on how Blanc is being badmouthed to his face, yet remains completely silent and unbothered. As they stand behind the counter, Reena continues her assessment. She concedes that people shouldn't say such things, especially since he is helping clear leftover requests. However, she also observes his lack of overt ambition and concludes that the errand boy nickname is surprisingly accurate. She elaborates on her point, noting that while he isn't bad-looking, his perpetually grumpy, low-energy vibe ruins his appeal. She feels that adventurers should possess a little more drive than that. With that attitude, she declares, he is definitely not dating material. The bluntness of her statement makes Lena shout out, trying to get her to stop. Her shout draws the attention of the adventurers at the counter, including the hooded Blanc. One of them, looking perplexed, asks why they think the front desk staff works at the guild, warning them not to look at him like that. In response, Reena strikes a dramatic pose, her eyes sparkling. She declares with absolute conviction that it's so they can marry a strong, rich, promising hottie. Lena can only look on, nonplussed. Reena immediately launches into examples, her excitement growing. She mentions Alan, recently promoted to grade 6, and Kevin, a solo grade 3 adventurer of noble blood, the full package. Lena, however, brings up the harsh reality that Alan is transferring and meeting nobility is nearly impossible. The sudden shift in conversation to romance leaves the adventurers at the counter stunned. One of them points out that they've never discussed such things with Lena before and curiously asks if there's anyone she has her eye on. Flustered by the direct question, she insists she doesn't have anyone in mind and isn't even looking for a partner. Her colleague, Reena, presses on, asking hypothetically if she would choose a high-ranking adventurer. Reena then offers her own strategic take, noting that it's smarter to target up-and-coming low-to-mid rankers, though she acknowledges the competition for them is fierce. As Reena's eyes sparkle with excitement at the gossip, Lena realizes with an internal groan that they won't let her drop the subject. The conversation has now drawn the attention of others in the guild hall, who lean in, asking what kind of person she would hypothetically choose. She waves her hands frantically, insisting that wasn't her intention, but it's too late. Reena, thoroughly enjoying the situation, eagerly suggests they start listing promising candidates. Cornered, Lena finally relents, admitting that if she had to choose, she would actually prefer a lower-ranked adventurer. Her answer surprises the eavesdropping adventurers. One blurts out a shocked, "What?" and asks how such a partner would earn money, while another comments on her bluntness. Lena clarifies her reasoning, explaining that if she were to marry, her priority would be a partner who doesn't engage in overly dangerous work. Reena nods in understanding as her friend continues. With a soft, sincere expression, Lena explains that while a life with a lower-ranked adventurer might not be lavish, she intends to keep working as well. For her, she concludes, simply being together is what matters most. At the guild, Reena brings up the subject of Lena's father. Lena confirms he was an adventurer who died during a mission. She reflects that while everyone called him brave and honorable, she thinks more of money or honor. She just wishes he had stayed with them. Reena listens with a gentle, knowing smile, simply acknowledging Lena's feelings with a quiet, "I see." Her quiet response surprises Lena. Reena then asks if, given those feelings, dating an adventurer would be difficult for her. Before Lena can worry, Reena quickly adds that if it's the rumored errand boy, she probably has nothing to fear. Winking playfully, she suggests that after hearing everything, it feels like he's the closest thing to Lena's ideal partner. Lena is taken aback by the directness. Reena continues her advice, stating that while a man with no future is no good, one who doesn't seem reliable isn't great either. She urges Lena to choose someone who will make her happy, prompting a thoughtful murmur of Blanc's-san from Lena. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Blanc and Aoi find themselves unexpectedly assigned to the same job, looking at each other in mutual surprise as they both question being together again. He explains the situation to Aoi. It's not a combat mission, but a collection job for olum fruit, which apparently only grows in the demon forest. He admits that he's never actually been inside the forest before. He looks away, confessing that he's nervous to go alone and was hoping she would accompany him. The thought of the demon forest gives him pause, as he realizes he's never gone in there either. Aoi, noticing he's in the middle of another task, apologizes for interrupting his work. He quickly reassures her, saying it's no problem and she shouldn't feel pressured, readily agreeing to her request. With the decision made, Blanc declares they'll head out now. He tells Aoi to wait a moment while he wraps up his current job, then vanishes in a blur of motion. Aoi is left stunned, exclaiming at his incredible speed. His incredible speed left Aoi in stunned admiration. She mused that adventurers were truly something else, noting that even reaching grade 8 required such profound physical ability. Her awe, however, quickly gave way to a wave of self-doubt. Watching him from behind, she wondered if she could ever truly become the kind of adventurer she aimed to be. feeling she lacked his speed and strength. She forcefully shook her head, covering her ears to block out the intrusive thoughts. No negativity, she told herself, recalling her past decision to become stronger. He noticed her turmoil and offered simple words of encouragement, telling her he was rooting for her. His support was exactly what she needed, as she clenched her fists and declared with renewed vigor that she just had to try harder. A moment of quiet understanding passed between them. As they began to walk through the town, he apologized for having run off so suddenly. A flustered Aoi stammered her acceptance as he suggested they get going, stating he didn't want to be out too late. Meanwhile, in a dense, dark forest, an elven woman suddenly stopped, her senses overwhelmed. A sinister presence filled the air, a presence she believed was impossible, something that couldn't be. Her eyes widened in horror as the realization struck. She recognized that thing, and she knew, with certainty, that they had killed it. Before she could react, thick, dark tendrils erupted from the forest floor, ensnaring her. A hand reached toward her as a calm voice spoke. "Come on now," it said. "I just want a peaceful life. Don't start any trouble, all right?" With this ominous event, a dark force, long dormant, begins to stir. The sixth Demon King. A large, serpentine monster lunges with its fangs bared. A young woman, Arya, stands her ground, her expression one of focused determination. She shouts an incantation, "Water Ball," as a magical projectile hurtles towards the creature, which recoils in pain. With a powerful cry, Arya follows up her magical attack, swinging her sword in a clean, decisive arc that slices through the monster. The monster's tail thuds to the ground behind Blanc, who looks on, impressed. "Whoa," he exclaims before complimenting her. "Nice one, Arya." She chuckles, pleased, explaining that she's been training hard to become an adventurer. Blanc notes that he can see that. As they walk deeper into the demon forest, Blanc observes that only weak monsters seem to appear near the entrance. He asks Arya if she has always wanted to be an adventurer. She confirms this, but her expression turns serious as she explains her motivation. 3 years ago, the town she lived in was attacked by the Black Dragon. Blanc reacts with a thoughtful hum. He asks for clarification. The Black Dragon? As in, the 10 billion gold dragon. Arya's gaze becomes distant as she recounts the memory. The kingdom's soldiers fought with all their might, but stood no chance. The town was destroyed, and everyone ran for their lives while she could only cry, thinking it was all over. Her expression suddenly brightens with excitement. She explains that just when all hope was lost, the Black Emperor appeared. He swooped in, blocking the Black Dragon's attacks, healing the wounded, and ultimately slaying the beast with a pitch-black spear. After witnessing this, Arya decided she wanted to become an adventurer who could protect people, too. With a radiant, determined smile, Arya declares that the Black Emperor is her role model. Below her, Blanc is stunned into silence by this revelation. His internal thoughts are a whirl of disbelief. He can't believe his actions actually inspired someone. Suddenly, Arya gasps, feeling a strange sensation, and looks around in alarm. She asks if he saw something, but Blanc, still processing her story, replies that he saw nothing dangerous. He then compliments her good form with a sword, to which she reacts with surprised pleasure. Just then, a rustling sound comes from a nearby bush, revealing the head of another serpentine monster. The monster is ignored as Arya's attention is captured by the bush itself. She points excitedly, asking if the berries are olem fruits. Blanc looks at the fruit, and a strange informational overlay appears before his eyes, indicating that knowledge is being uploaded. He asks if there is anything special he should know before picking the olem fruits. Arya's hands gently cup one as she explains that, not unlike most fruits, care must be taken not to bruise them. She adds a crucial detail. If the stem remains too long, it can scratch the other fruits during transport. He confirms that he understands and will be careful. As Arya asks if they have gathered enough, his attention is suddenly seized by an immense magical pressure, one he recognizes as even greater than the Black Dragon's. He realizes he wasn't imagining the feeling and internally questions if this is the presence of the third Demon King, who is said to reside in this forest. His expression hardens with the grim confirmation. This is, after all, the demon forest. Arya, unaware of the power he senses, simply suggests they should head back before it gets dark, and he agrees. He continues to assess the situation, noting that, strangely, he feels no hostility from the overwhelming presence. Arya looks at him with curiosity as he decides to simply observe for now. Deciding to finish the task at hand, he explodes into motion. In a blur, his knife flashes, precisely severing the stems of dozens of fruits and sending them flying perfectly into the collection crates. The whirlwind ceases. He examines a perfectly harvested fruit, noting how tough the orangia stems are and musing that harvesting them by hand would be a nightmare. Other workers stare in disbelief, amazed at how he sliced only the stem without damaging the fruit. The orchard owner rushes over, grabbing Blanc's hands with overwhelming gratitude. He exclaims that thanks to Blanc, they finished in record time and enthusiastically offers him a full-time job, calling him a lucky ladies' man. Blanc, taken aback, begins to politely decline. While sitting on some steps in town, Blanc is approached by a man in a large, hooded cloak. The man notes that Blanc he is joined by Chairman Vulcan and other townspeople, who elaborate on the observation. They point out that Blanc has been out on the plains every day gathering herbs and helping people all over town. Vulcan remarks that he is a true adventurer, but Blanc, seated on a crate, dismisses the concern, stating he doesn't feel like he's overdoing it. The hooded man suggests that Blanc should try relaxing and exploring the great town of Claret. This prompts Blanc to reflect on his past, when he was always chasing one job after another, never even considering taking it easy. He now realizes that maybe it wouldn't be so bad, voicing his agreement with the idea. Hearing this, Chairman Vulcan enthusiastically presents a massive grilled skewer, calling it one of the town's selling points. He explains that while most adventurers are drawn to the demon forest, Claret has much more to offer. The hooded man playfully warns Blanc not to fall for the sales pitch. Blanc's eyes widen in surprise as he takes a bite of the skewer. Vulcan chides him for being so serious, stating that it's a waste to visit another land and ignore its unique culture and experiences. The hooded man apologizes for Vulcan's directness. Inspired, he declares that he will start making time to explore Claret more regularly. Vulcan is delighted, encouraging him to go on and eat his way through the town. The chairman then offers him another skewer, this one on the house. When Blanc asks if he's sure, Vulcan insists, explaining that it's only fair since Blanc has helped him out as well. As he accepts the food, Blanc expresses confusion, stating that as an adventurer, he was just doing what he was supposed to. Vulcan clarifies that it's not about that. He's surprised because Blanc has been handling their requests, and the people all around town genuinely appreciate everything he has done. He continues, explaining from behind his counter that thanks to Blanc's regular forging, they have finally stocked up on healing potions, which used to be a constant problem. He asks Blanc to accept the food as a token of their thanks, adding that they are counting on him. In the background, Reena smiles warmly at the exchange. Fully understanding their gratitude, Blanc gladly accepts the offer. Vulcan beams, telling him not to be shy and to eat as much as he wants as Blanc takes another bite. He savors the grilled skewer, remarking on how good it is. The man next to him explains that most high-paying jobs come from the guild or nobles, which is why adventurers are reluctant to take on simple town errands. Blanc understands, acknowledging that promotions are tied to the more difficult quests, but still wishes more would help out. The taste makes him wonder why he was so lifeless before coming here. While he admits monster hunts have a certain appeal, a sentiment the townsman shares, he reflects on his past. He concludes that his ability to enjoy these peaceful meals is thanks to his former master, and he feels he owes her a great deal. Suddenly, a woman's voice cuts through his thoughts, declaring with energy that errands can be cool too. Blanc looks up, his expression one of pure surprise. The voice belongs to a townswoman who, along with the orchard owner and a guard, playfully chides him for monopolizing the guild receptionist, Reena. They mention she was stressed recently and tell him not to cause her too much trouble, good-naturedly calling him a good but weird guy. This friendly interaction attracts a crowd of grateful townspeople. They quickly surround Blanc, eagerly pressing gifts upon him as thanks for his help, urging him not to be shy. Overwhelmed, Blanc tries to refuse, but the townsfolk insist, saying they'll count on him again. He is flustered, realizing he can't possibly carry everything they're giving him as still more people approach. As he walks away, laden with goods, a woman tending to plants in her flower shop notices his predicament. She smiles warmly at the sight, murmuring a quiet thank you. She then calls out, offering him some of her flowers as well. Blanc, struggling under the weight of his many gifts, is stunned. The woman laughs, amused by the situation and calling him a handsome devil, but assures him his kindness is more than enough of a gift. After he expresses his thanks, the topic changes. Blanc mentions that since he has a large yard, he's thinking of starting a small farm. The shop owner enthusiastically supports the idea and asks if he's looking for any vegetables that are easy to grow at home, sparking an idea for Blanc. In response, she recommends the tamarind. She explains that it's perfect for this time of year, being high in nutrients and extremely low maintenance. It grows like crazy with very little water. Convinced, Blanc agrees to take one. Having finished planting the seeds in his new garden, he stands back to survey his work. Wiping sweat from his brow with a dirt-smudged hand, he sighs with satisfaction, believing the amount he's planted should be plenty. As he walks back toward his house, he reflects on his recent trip to the flower shop. He's glad that his strange, encyclopedic knowledge proved useful for something as peaceful as gardening, musing that it gives him something new to look forward to. Later, he sinks into a warm bath, letting out a deep sigh of contentment. It occurs to him that even though he bought the house some time ago, this is the very first time he has allowed himself to simply relax within its walls. But while one man finds a moment of peace, elsewhere a monstrous power emerges. A colossal being of gnarled wood and tangled vines looms, a stark reminder that in the face of overwhelming despair, humanity is often far too powerless. Blanc, the errand boy, considers his current task with a thoughtful expression, his finger resting on his chin. He walks through a forest, but finds the area unervingly barren. There is not a single olem fruit, nor are there even any useful herbs in sight. Continuing his search, he wonders if it's even possible for something to simply vanish. He dismisses the idea of monsters, as there are no tracks. He briefly considers if Arya came ahead of him, but he had just recently taught her not to overharvest. The grim reality of the situation dawns on him. At this rate, he will fail his very first errand. This is a terrible prospect, as he was just beginning to establish himself as the errand guy and cannot afford to lose the trust of the guild or the townspeople. His expression hardens with resolve. His thoughts are interrupted by the sudden sensation of a powerful monster's presence. He is taken aback, recalling that monsters above grade 5 are not supposed to appear in this forest. He gauges its power to be grade 4, or perhaps even higher. He immediately understands that whatever this creature is, it is far too dangerous for the adventurers of Claret to handle. The source of this immense pressure reveals itself, a massive tyrant golem. He identifies it as a plant-based, wood-element monster with an estimated difficulty of grade 3. He quickly deduces that the golem has been absorbing the magic and life energy from the forest trees, which explains why the mana-dependent plants are dying off. He surmises it must have been hiding in the uncharted depths of the forest. The pieces click into place. In other words, the reason he cannot complete his errand is because of this very creature. His hand clenches into a tight fist. He resolves to take the monster down quickly and return to his errand work. But just as he prepares to act, a faint sound catches his attention. Someone else is there. Turning, he is met with a shocking sight. Arya is on the ground, injured and weakly calling for help. Standing over her is the imposing figure of Sword St. Cloul. Blanc can only stare, uttering Arya's name in disbelief. He lunges forward, his blade a streak of light that intercepts Sword St. Cloul's. The clash of steel rings through the blighted forest as he positions himself between the attacker and Arya's fallen form, with the tyrant golem looming in the background. Ignoring the other combatants for a crucial moment, he scoops Arya into his arms. His expression is grim as he holds her limp body, shielding her from further harm. He calls out her name, his voice strained with worry. With no time to waste, he pulls the cap from a healing potion with his teeth, preparing to administer it while keeping a wary eye on the monstrous golem. As he carefully tends to her, the potent medicine takes effect, stabilizing her condition. He cradles her gently, relieved that he always carries top-quality healing items, even though he has never needed them for himself. Just as her breathing steadies, a strange sound echoes and a mysterious haze begins to form around them. Blanc looks around, confused. The phenomenon feels familiar, like something his master once taught him, but he can't quite recall the details. What was that? He wonders aloud. His thoughts are cut short when he realizes Sword St. Cloul has vanished within the haze. He knows he'll have to press her for answers the next time they meet, but for now, his priority is getting Arya to safety. Just as he resolves to head back to town, a brilliant column of energy erupts from the ground directly in his path. Leaping through the treetops with Arya held securely in his arms, the young man wonders what has gone so wrong with the forest. He exclaims in surprise as the environment around him erupts. The source of the chaos reveals itself, a horde of hulking, crude golems. As one unleashes an explosive burst of energy, he twists through the air to evade, realizing the situation is seriously messed up. He lands for a brief moment, his eyes wide with shock. He thinks to himself that if it were just one of them, it could be argued it had wandered out from the deeper forest by chance, but an entire group is another matter entirely. As he considers this, another golem lunges with a speed that belies its massive size. He leaps away again, exclaiming at its quickness. He has never heard of golem-type monsters forming groups. He lands deftly on a thick branch, still protecting Arya. He observes their movements, noting that their attacks are too intelligent. A disturbing possibility begins to dawn on him. He glances down at Arya, apologizing for the danger and promising to wrap things up quickly. His suspicion solidifies as an image of a sinister, smiling woman with pointed ears flashes in his mind. He questions if someone is controlling them. He leaps back into the fray, effortlessly dodging a powerful downward smash from Golem. He muses that while the creature certainly packs a punch, its power is meaningless if it can't land a hit. With a fluid motion, he unleashes a wide, horizontal slash. The battle concludes. Standing amidst the aftermath with Arya still safe in his arm, he calmly assesses his own performance. He notes that his skill is still not at his master's level, but it's not too shabby either. The memory fades, returning to the present. Now, in his simpler attire, he stands with a thoughtful expression, his finger resting on his chin as he contemplates his next action. His gaze falls upon the wreckage of the giant tyrant golem and the defeated Sword St. Cloul, who sits slumped against a rock. He wonders aloud what he should do with these two. His rapport at the Adventurers Guild is met with disbelief. The receptionist, Reena, stares at the document, asking in astonishment if he truly defeated 3 tyrant golems. Behind her, Chairman Vulcan fumes, questioning why he would simply leave them behind. Blanc calmly confirms that he did. This revelation, however, leads not to a reprimand, but to a promotion. Reena cheerfully congratulates him, explaining that with his newfound power, he can no longer accept simple errand requests, pointing to a mountain of commissions from nobles. As the surrounding adventurers murmur in awe, a look of pure horror spreads across his face. This was the exact opposite of what he wanted. His mind flashes back to the clearing, the source of his panic. He realizes that simply destroying the golem's physical form won't be enough. The residual magic energy would remain as proof. More importantly, Arya witnessed the tyrant golem herself. The thought that this can't be allowed to happen grips him. He must erase all evidence, no matter the cost. A solution comes to mind, a way to erase everything completely. He considers the method, a special elemental magic that only he can cast, powerful enough to leave not even dust behind. But a wave of hesitation washes over him as he remembers his master's explicit command to never use this power. His internal conflict is brief. He reasons that since Arya is unconscious and there were no other witnesses, he can act without consequence. If he just cleans up the scene quickly and returns, everything will be fine. With a surge of resolve, he dismisses his master's warning. He steels himself, raising a hand to begin the incantation. All right, he mutters, let's get this over with. After the magic subsides, he stands in the clearing, but his resolve dissolves into confusion. The evidence is gone, but something else has appeared in its place. He stares at his hand, then at the ground before him, completely baffled. What is this? He wonders, oblivious to the still unconscious sword saint resting nearby. A tremendous surge of magical power erupts in the demon forest. Blanc observes, realizing this energy is far denser and more overwhelming than a grade 0 threat, incomparable to the tyrant golem or even the black dragon. He questions what could possibly unleash such power here. Nearby, a group of adventurers stares in shock, wondering what is happening. The source of the power is revealed. The remains of the defeated golems are merging, coalescing into a single, colossal new form. Blanc watches, recognizing this as an unprecedented event he has never heard of before. The monstrous fusion slams a massive fist down, forcing Blanc to leap back to evade the crushing impact. The ground shatters where he just stood. He clicks his tongue in annoyance, acknowledging that this will be a tough opponent. He lands at a distance, observing the creature with a calculating gaze. He quickly deduces that while its strength and durability have clearly increased, the fundamental material that makes up its body has not changed. As he evades another blow, his theory solidifies. The golem must have absorbed the dense ambient magic to reinforce itself. With a grunt of understanding, he concludes that dealing with it won't be so hard now that he knows its nature. A determined glint appears in his eyes. He declares the creature to be the perfect punching bag to vent his frustration over a failed errand. Without hesitation, he charges forward, leaping onto the golem's massive arm. He uses the arm as a ramp, vaulting high into the air. In a swift, powerful arc, he brings his sword down, cleaving through the golem's shoulder and torso with a flash of energy. As cracks spread across the golem's body from the impact, he calmly explains the simple logic. There is nothing to be surprised about. If a foe is hardened by magic, one must simply strike it with even stronger magic. That is all there is to it. He lands gracefully on the ground, his back to the creature as it begins to shatter completely. The nearby adventurers can only watch in stunned silence. The colossal golem disintegrates into fine dust, scattering in the wind. It collapsed without leaving even salvageable materials. A truly nightmarish monster for any adventurer. He stands amidst the smoldering devastation, his sword held loosely at his side. Nearby, Sword Saint Cluel sits slumped against the base of a tree, her eyes closed in defeat or exhaustion. Looking up at the sky, he lets out a quiet sigh, remarking to himself that he should at least consider it fortunate that he was able to destroy the evidence. Blanc arrives at the city gates, carrying the unconscious form of the adventurer Arya. He is met by the stern gaze of branch leader Oof, who questions the nerve of the two errand boys for showing their faces again. As he speaks, Arya begins to stir, her eyes fluttering open. She awakens in a bed inside the Adventurers Guild. The receptionist, Reena, leans over her with a look of immense relief, exclaiming that she is finally awake. Panic immediately sets in. Arya sits up, frantically trying to warn them about a terrible, huge, and vicious golem she encountered in the forest. Another guild member, Reena, quickly reassures her that they have already been informed and that she is now safe. Her distress continues as she asks if the guild had dispatched someone for a rescue. Lena starts to stammer, explaining that, no, the one who saved her was someone else entirely. Elsewhere in the guild hall, branch leader Oof lets out a tremendous wail. He rushes forward and pulls Blanc into a crushing hug, scolding him for causing so much worry while simultaneously apologizing for not being able to go himself, reminding the boy that he is a cherished part of their town. The commotion reaches Arya's room. Reena explains to the bewildered girl that the loud man is their normally strict but highly emotional branch leader. Lena then delivers the stunning news. It was Blanc who rescued her. The revelation leaves Arya speechless, while Blanc himself appears completely vacant, as if his mind is a void. According to Blanc's own testimony, the tyrant golem had already vanished by the time he found Arya. He internally questions if he just happened to be on a mission in the demon forest too, and wonders who could have been the one to defeat the creature. Hearing this secondhand account, Reena turns to Arya and asks her to describe what actually happened in the forest. Arya hesitates, a seed of doubt planted in her mind. That story can't possibly be right. Her memory flashes back to the fight. She recalls dodging a swarm of monsters, only to be struck down and lose consciousness as the tyrant golem moved in for the kill. She realizes a mass outbreak of monsters must have emerged from deep within the forest, with a golem as part of that horde. Reena listens and reasons that since a battle was spotted from town, someone definitely fought the golem, meaning Blanc must have arrived just in time. Reena agrees that it had to be Blanc, but finds it puzzling. She notes that even when she was partnered with him, she never saw him fight once, and he has never accepted any combat requests. She continued to puzzle over the events. In the infirmary, Arya sat up in bed, suddenly realizing she felt no pain at all and wondering who could have healed her. Reena admitted she had no idea, but observed that Arya's injuries were completely gone, meaning their savior was also a powerful healer. She theorized it might have been a high-ranked, wandering adventurer, but the image of Blanc flickered in her mind before she dismissed the thought as impossible. Meanwhile, in the main hall of the guild, Blanc found himself hoisted into the air by an exuberant branch leader Oof, who was thanking him profusely. Nearby, Arya, now fully dressed and recovered, watched the scene unfold. She resolved that, one way or another, she needed to thank whoever had saved her. The guild master's boisterous display culminated in him playfully tossing Blanc through the air. Seeing the commotion, Arya decided he looked busy and that she would wait until later. As another guild member shouted for Oof to stop goofing off and get back to work, Reena and Lena simply watched. His feet back on solid ground, Blanc's expression hardened with resolve. Ignoring the surrounding chaos, he slammed his hands on the counter and declared with intensity that he wanted to take on another request. His determined words were met with a warm, knowing smile from Lena at the reception desk. She explained the current situation. It had been a whole month since the tyrant golem incident, and investigations were still underway in the massive forest. Consequently, low-rank adventurers were avoiding the area and taking all the available townside jobs, leaving hardly anything for her to assign. While the missions were important, she stated the adventurers' lives mattered more. With that, she held up a document for promotion exam applicants, suggesting that perhaps this was his chance. As the guild receptionist, Arya, turns around, she finds that the young man has vanished in an instant. She wonders aloud where he went. Elsewhere, unseen, he reflects that he hadn't expected a single monster to cause so much disruption. He briefly considers that with no jobs available, he could just go home and tend his garden, but a new thought stops him cold. He stands alone on a rooftop, looking down at the town. He questions whether a self-proclaimed errand adventurer who wants to help people should simply sit by and wait for someone else to fix the problem, especially when people are struggling and he himself is out of work because of it. His expression hardens with resolve. He decides that if he takes care of the cause himself, everything will be resolved. No one, he determines, is going to mess with his simple errand boy life. Having made his decision, he leaps down into an alleyway, quickly checking to ensure that no one saw his clandestine movement. He soon arrives at the edge of the demon forest, the source of the disturbance. As he cautiously approaches, he recalls the warnings about the forest's immense size. He pauses, contemplating his approach. He considers that flying would be faster, but realizes that using his magic might attract the attention of whatever is inside, which could become annoying. Deciding against it, he concludes that he'll just run. It doesn't matter how large the forest is. If he keeps moving forward, he will eventually reach his destination. With that, he breaks into a sprint. As he dashes through the trees, he is surprised by a stampede of lesser monsters. He recognizes them as the type of creatures Arya had mentioned were fleeing from the forest depths. One of the fleeing beasts, a rank 6 rock grizzly, turns on him. Without breaking stride, he apologizes, stating he's in a hurry and has no time to deal with it. He effortlessly leaps over the charging monster, casually telling it he'll see it on his way back. His haste is warranted. The true threats lurking deeper in the forest are revealed. Powerful rank 3 monsters, including a berserk treant, a tyrant golem, and a chaos monkey. He leaps over another fallen beast, pushing deeper into the forest. The sheer number of monsters is starting to become a nuisance. He recalls being told that creatures above rank 4 don't appear in this area, but that seems to be just because no one has explored this far in. The constant fighting reminds him of his grueling training days with his master. A memory surfaces, him, as a small boy, facing a horde of monstrous creatures, as the sharp voice of Sword Saint Clul screams his name. She stood over him then, sword at the ready, demanding to know if he thought he could stop in the middle of a fight. She drilled into him that losing focus meant death, a lesson the young Blanc affirmed with a terrified, "Yes, ma'am." Looking back on it now, he realizes that the training he endured was definitely not something one would normally subject a child to. 3 days later, he is still running, realizing the situation is far bigger than anticipated. He worries that even if he finishes his task today, the 3-day journey back will mean he misses his daily check-ins at the guild. Lena will surely get suspicious, and he desperately wants to avoid being crushed by branch leader Oof's overwhelming, sweat-drenched displays of emotional concern. He finally stops, having arrived at a place emanating immense power. He recognizes it immediately. This is the core of the forest's magic. He reflects that the fusion tyrant golem was strong, but this source of energy is in a whole different league. Within an ethereal, glowing space, Blanc calls out into the void, stating that he knows someone is present. After spending 3 days to reach this location, He demands that the entity reveal itself. In response, the form of a woman with long, flowing hair begins to materialize before him. The greeting is hostile. A sharp tendril of energy erupts from the newly formed woman, forcing Blanc to dodge with a click of his tongue. As he lands, he confirms her identity, recognizing her with certainty and remarking on the aggressive welcome. Floating before him, she observes that something feels wrong. She identifies him as a human, a fact which he calmly confirms is correct. She continues her questioning, demanding to know why a human is emitting the distinct presence of the sixth demon lord. Blanc can only react with confusion. His confusion prompts a question of his own. He asks what she is talking about, stating that he was told there are only 5 demon lords. The mention of a sixth is new to him. The woman acknowledges that, at the very least, they can understand one another's speech. The woman concedes that something is definitely off. She had heard the third demon lord was friendly with humans and hoped for a peaceful dialogue. However, she then questions why this sixth demon lord would need a weapon, just like the tyrant golems. Blanc, looking serious, insists he has no idea what she means and asks for an explanation. She cryptically replies that the previous sixth lord was different from them. She elaborates, describing the previous entity as a child of malice born from the hatred of gods and stars, a mindless vessel of destruction, a being of erasing magic. Puzzled by his nature, she declares that she will have to confirm things for herself. Following her declaration, a monstrous form erupts from behind her, a chaotic mass of writhing, dark tentacles. Blanc watches in alarm, realizing that the situation is not good and that any hope for diplomacy has just vanished. He is thrown back by the violent assault, gritting his teeth as he acknowledges that victory with just a sword will not be easy. As he leaps away to create distance, the woman declares that even if they speak the same language, a demon lord remains humanity's enemy. Surrounded by lashing tendrils, Blanc lands and braces himself. His expression hardens with resolve. He understands there is no other choice but to fight. He stood his ground, sword in hand, as an array of summoned, ornate blades hovered around him. A grim thought crossed his mind. His master was going to kill him for this. Across the clearing, the sixth demon lord looked on in surprise. Her previous monstrous form, now just a dissipating wisp. As he watched her, another realization struck him with force. This was bad. He questioned if even 3 years of training were not enough to handle this overwhelming power. A fierce battle was now inevitable. Confronting the sixth demon lord, Blanc decides that with no one else around, it is finally time to let loose. He unleashes a torrent of dark energy projectiles, a technique he calls the god-slaying spear, directly at his opponent. His adversary, however, seems unimpressed. She remarks that his attack isn't what she expected, noting a trace of her own attribute within his magic, which she finds odd for what she assumed was a basic all-element spell. As Blanc processes her words with a confused more the strange root-like tendrils erupt from the ground around him. He shouts, demanding to know what she is. The sixth demon lord coolly replies that if he wants answers, he should talk. Blanc finds himself on the defensive, realizing that while his magic is more effective than a sword here, he's still being pushed back. He reasons that even demon lords don't have unlimited mana, and begins searching for an opening in her assault. Observing his struggle, she decides to end the exchange. Dark energy gathers around her hand as she resigns herself, concluding that she has no other choice. In response to her decision, massive, thick roots erupt violently from the earth. Blanc looks up in shock, just as the sixth demon lord smirks. He quickly raises a hand, conjuring an absolute demon severing barrier to shield himself from the onslaught. The barrier shatters almost instantly against the overwhelming force of the roots, leaving Blanc wide-eyed with disbelief at the power directed at him. He is completely overwhelmed. The roots surge forward, wrapping around his limbs and torso, lifting him helplessly into the air as the sixth demon lord watches her traps spring shut. The countless roots converge and solidify into a single, colossal structure, a massive, gnarled tree that seals Blanc within its very core. This is the heaven-sealing demon tree. With her target completely immobilized, the sixth demon lord holds a small orb of dark energy. "Gotcha," she declares with a triumphant smile. As the vines of the tree visibly tighten, she asks if he is now ready to talk. Trapped and bound, Blanc grimaces. He had tried to use his sword to cut himself free, but realizes with dread that the bindings didn't even budge. He stood trapped within the magical prison, contemplating his predicament. The very same move that had effortlessly sliced through a fused tyrant golem was having no effect on this wooden cage. Pressing his hand against the unyielding surface, he could feel the immense power woven into it. He surmised that the sixth demon lord must have expended a great deal of her energy to create this cocoon. Yet he also recognized that the magic flowing through the structure was of a completely different league. Despite the overwhelming power of the prison, he remained resolute. When it came to mana reserves, he was confident he wouldn't lose to anyone. He began to gather his own energy, concentrating it, making it stronger, denser. The concentrated, dark energy swirled into a volatile vortex before he thrust his hand forward, roaring a single command to his power. "Break through." a blinding explosion of power erupted outwards, obliterating the magical tree in a torrent of force. As the light subsided, he stood amidst the devastation, looking at the result of his own power with a hint of confusion. Trapped within a prison of gnarled roots, the young man, known as Blanc, listens to the taunts of his captor, the sixth demon lord. She laughs, declaring his efforts useless. Regular magic, even with mana equivalent to a demon's, has done no damage to her construct. She leans in, a smug look on her face, and reveals that the magic binding him is the very same that was once used to seal away the sixth demon lord. He internally questions the constant, recent mentions of this particular demon lord. His thoughts drift away from the battle as a pang of hunger strikes him. He finds himself wishing he could just go home and eat a grilled skewer. The realization that his current spells and sword techniques are completely ineffective makes his stomach twist, meaning he must resort to something else. He clutches his stomach, his expression hardening with resolve. Acknowledging that he is fighting a demon lord, he decides there is no longer any point in holding back. A fleeting image of his master flashes through his mind. In response to this decision, a torrent of dark energy erupts from his body, shattering the magical restraints. The demon lord looks on, stunned. He internally groans, knowing this particular magic always exhausts him, and the thought of the 3-day walk back only makes the prospect worse. The swirling darkness coalesces in his hand, forming a sinister, ethereal spear. He has summoned the Lance of Endings. With a surge of power, the lance flies forward and impales the core of the massive wooden golem. The sixth demon lord watches, her expression of shock turning to one of utter disbelief as her creation is pierced. She quietly asks if he managed to break out. He confirms that he did, but the cost was high. He realizes he burned through his mana with that single attack and cannot afford to keep fighting with such intensity. Before he can recover, she closes the distance between them in an instant. Her finger gently touches his chest as a look of sudden understanding crosses her face. "Also, that's what this is," she murmurs. He flinches, caught completely by surprise. Realizing he let his guard down, he can only stare as she looks at him with unnerving certainty and poses a shocking question. "You've got the heart of the sixth demon lord, don't you?" He stares in disbelief, muttering the word heart. The sixth demon lord, smiling cheerfully, confirms his confusion, adding that they had thought it was completely erased. His eye widens in shock. His shock gives way to furious denial. He shouts, demanding to know what she is talking about, insisting he has never even heard of the sixth demon lord. Unfazed, her three forms find the situation fascinating, musing aloud how the heart could have survived and ended up inside a human. For them, this unexpected development makes everything fall into place. He continues to press for answers, questioning what she means by erased and demanding to know the identity of the sixth demon lord. Her response is simple and direct: an enemy. She clarifies the scope of her statement, explaining that she is an enemy not only to her fellow demon lords, but to humans, the gods, and the very planet itself. His expression softens as he considers her words. He concedes that it might be possible, admitting that, honestly, he doesn't really know who he is either. The demon lord asks if this information jogs any memories, but he remains skeptical, pointing out that it's hard to trust someone who was just trying to kill him. She casually waves off his concern, stating she wasn't truly trying. His hand tightens into a fist. He reasons that if his master never mentioned anything about this, then it must not be a problem. With renewed conviction, he declares that what truly matters now is a different question entirely. He stares her down, posing the question that now hangs between them. Is he her enemy or not? The sixth demon lord meets his gaze, a faint, inscrutable smile on her face, leaving the answer unspoken. The woman, composed of energy, laughs, calling the young man a funny one. She tells him to relax, assuring him she won't bother him or the townspeople any longer. When he expresses his doubt, she states that if she truly wanted to wipe everything out, she could have done so at any time. Besides, she explains, this was a unique situation. She normally never initiates an attack unless someone strikes her first. He observes her, realizing the truth in her words. With her immense power, destroying not just the town of Claret, but the entire Relate Kingdom would be an easy task. He concludes that since she has never done so, she must not be truly interested in destruction. He then asks what caused all the trouble this time. She drifts closer, her face inches from his, and explains she was merely curious about the source of the sixth demon lord's presence. Now that she knows he possesses no will or intent of his own in that role, she has lost interest. He recoils slightly, telling her not to get so close. She asks if he can sense her true nature. He confirms that he can, noting that she only ever defended herself and never actually tried to attack him. He realizes she noticed his own restraint. The woman smiles, affirming that she, too, loves peace and feels a kinship with him, unlike the other sixth demon lord. His expression turns serious as he questions her about someone named Lilith. The woman's tone becomes cautionary as she warns him that if Lilith were to find him, things might not proceed so smoothly. This Lilith is revealed to be the first demon lord, a being who holds dominion over dragons and beasts. She is depicted as a dark, commanding silhouette seated upon a massive, monstrous creature. The young man groans in exasperation, complaining about the absurdity of being hated by someone he has never even met. The woman beside him chuckles, confirming that Lilith absolutely despises the sixth demon lord. He asks what kind of person this much-hated sixth demon lord was. The woman apologizes, stating she doesn't want to remember, and thus cannot say. She adds a grim detail. 3 years ago, one of Lilith's favorite vassals was killed, and she remains furious about it to this day. The weight of this inherited conflict settles on the young man's face. Seeing his troubled expression, she offers a surprising reassurance. She tells him not to look so dejected and promises that if he ever finds himself in trouble, she will help him. He looks up, startled by her offer, and asks if she truly means it. She confirms her promise with a smile and introduces herself as Knuckle. She then asks for his name in return. He replies, Bran. He sighed, telling the ethereal being that he really just wants a quiet life. Knuckle smiled, inviting him to come play anytime. Bran gave a non-committal reply, stating he might return if he feels like it, considering the 3-day journey each way. He then turned to leave. As he walked away through the stark white forest, he reflected on how he seems to get dragged into crazier situations every time. With the ordeal behind him, his thoughts turned to a simple desire: to get home and, first thing, take a bath. Upon his return to town, he was immediately greeted by 2 familiar faces from the guild. Reena waved enthusiastically, exclaiming that it had been a long time, while Lena offered a small, welcoming sound of recognition. Lena was glad to see him, informing him that things in the forest had calmed down about 3 days prior, so he could resume taking regular requests regardless of his rank. Bran, however, politely passed on the offer, explaining that he just wanted to get home and take a bath. His mention of a bathhouse drew confused looks. Reena asked what that was, and Lena questioned if he'd truly never been to one. Reena then praised them, noting how big and comfortable they are. Reena urged him to hurry, as the bathhouse gets crowded quickly despite its size. Since she and Lena were already heading there, they offered to show him the way. Sinking into the steaming water, Bran let out a sigh of pure bliss, feeling as though he were in heaven. He learned that a nearby volcano keeps the water perpetually hot and fresh, and he had to agree it was the best. His heavenly moment was short-lived, as he realized the bath was incredibly crowded. He mused that it would be even better if it wasn't packed like sardines. Suddenly, he was surrounded by other adventurers, all there to thank him for his help. One man declared that the least they could do was scrub his back. As one man noted his popularity, another enthusiastically offered to wash his back. Overwhelmed, Bran sank beneath the water surface. He thought that while he liked hot springs, true relaxation was at home, but conceded that this kind of welcome wasn't so bad after all. On the other side of the wall, in the women's bath, Reena commented on how noisy the men's side was. Her casual observation was cut short by shouts of alarm, as the men yelled for someone to get Bran out of the water, crying that he was sinking. She and Lena could only listen in alarm from the women's side, as in the men's bath, Bran was finally pulled from the water. He gasped for air, dazed and overwhelmed by the chaotic show of gratitude. It was the unfortunate fate of a strong man. Just as things seemed to settle, trouble would find him. At the time, however, he had no idea of the true troubles brewing elsewhere. Unbeknownst to him, deep within the peaceful heart of the town, a terrible scheme was already in motion. In a dark chamber, a silhouetted figure in a long coat stood before a massive, lion-like beast suspended within a glowing cylindrical prison, its body connected by numerous tubes. Within the black forest of the Ledion Empire, Sword St. Cloul reflects on her current predicament. She was supposed to be retired from adventuring, but was tempted to leave the country entirely. However, the Empire agreed to postpone its search for the Black Emperor on the condition that she, the Sword Saint, fill the void he left. The situation is a constant headache for her. She stands by a window, considering her options. Though it's annoying, she has no choice but to deal with it. She is well aware that the Empire cannot afford to lose her, knowing she could easily relocate to another nation if she felt compelled to do so. Her thoughts drift to a memory of her master, who once expressed his hope that the boy, Blanc, wouldn't be caught in a mess upon his return. The memory then shifts to a more recent past, where Blanc tells Aoi that there is something he wants to try. Aoi simply agrees. In that memory, Aoi embraces Blanc, reassuring him that everything will be fine. She internally notes that it has been 3 years, and he has grown significantly. Yet, as she watches a dove outside the window, she admits to herself that she is still concerned about his emotional maturity, especially compared to when they first met. Returning to the present, Cole's attention is fixed on a document before her. The words on the page are stark: the Demon Blood Society. She is in a briefing with Chairman Vulcan, who elaborates on the report. He confirms the Demon Blood Society is a group attempting to fuse humans and demons into a new species, and that their experiments include demonkin as well. He emphasizes that they are considered extremely dangerous, and that nations across the continent are treating the threat with utmost seriousness. As he speaks, a horrifying image of the society's work flashes in her mind. Children, failed test subjects, locked away in cages. The very idea is revolting to her. The scene shifts to another time, where Cloul walks through a dark facility, followed by a small, cloaked subordinate. The figure fawns over her, stating that as expected of Sword St. Cloul, Her power is so great that even demons stand no chance. Cutting through the flattery, she coldly demands to know the next target. She is led before a man with a sinister grin, who gestures to a small, bound child, a young Blanc. The man proudly declares the boy his greatest masterpiece and final weapon, then commands the child to kill her. Chloe's expression hardens. She recognizes that this masterpiece is just a child and realizes she must rescue him before it's too late. Before the command can be obeyed, a torrent of dark, violent energy erupts, striking the sinister man. The young Blanc stares in wide-eyed shock as Chloe looks on in utter disbelief at the sudden, powerful intervention. He stood at the center of a maelstrom of raw mana, the sheer magical pressure astonishing. Observing the phenomenon, Sword St. Chloe's confident smirk faded. She realized this might prove to be a genuine challenge. In response, she launched herself forward in a blur of motion. Her attack carried her into the air, but she quickly understood the situation was far beyond her expectations. A grim choice presented itself. Holding back meant defeat, yet unleashing her full power would kill the child. As she wrestled with the decision, the boy stood vacant and bleeding, a being too dangerous for the world to let live. Chloe knew she had to act, yet, as she prepared to strike, her hand faltered. She looked upon a child whose future had been stolen, twisted into a mere weapon. Now, the world demanded she rob him of his life as well. The thought was unbearable. She couldn't do it. Her hesitation proved unnecessary. The boy's power suddenly dissipated, and he collapsed to the ground, completely spent. Chloe noted that he was out of mana and immobile. The battle was over. She knelt beside him, gently cradling his head. Her expression softened as she spoke to the unconscious child, assuring him that he was now safe and inviting him to come with her. The memory fades, returning to the present. Chloe sits by a window, contemplating the past. She acknowledges that great power like his inevitably attracts those who would abuse it. Knowing only the life of an adventurer, she set him on that same path. Still, she believes that if he has found his own will, his own reason to walk forward, then he'll be fine. He is, after all, her disciple. In the town of Claret, within the kingdom of Rerate, Blanc smiles to himself. He wonders what fun a certain person is having and looks forward to hearing all about it upon their return. At the Adventurers Guild, a young adventurer clicks his tongue in annoyance at the sheer number of requests posted. He reflects that this is an important lesson on how wonderful and precious daily life is, a realization he must report to his master. He turns to the receptionist, Reena, declaring he is nothing like the spineless errand boy. Filled with ambition, the adventurer, Gadel, demands an 8th rank request, certain that its completion will guarantee his promotion to the 7th rank. Another receptionist explains the guild's policy. All requests come directly from clients, and they cannot simply create them. She notes that while there are plenty of 9th rank requests, Gadel finds this insufficient. The commotion attracts the branch leader, Mr. Oof. Gadel questions him about the Forest of Evil. Oof confirms there's been no abnormal activity, but forest-related work is still off-limits to lower-ranked adventurers. Gadel insists there must be 8th rank requests available, prompting a worried look from Reena. In response, Mr. Oof addresses the entire guild hall. He officially lifts the restrictions on the Forest of Evil, but mandates that any strange signs must be reported immediately. Gadel clenches his fists in triumph. He immediately returns to the counter, impatiently demanding the request from Reena. However, his excitement turns to shock as she informs him that the only 8th rank request available is for gathering Aurum fruit. As Gadel stands speechless, Blanc calmly steps in. He states that he'll take the job and asks for the paperwork. Reena then informs Gadel that if he's not satisfied, he can take a different request, but there are no monster hunting jobs available. Having accepted the quest, Gadel finds himself in the forest. He curses his luck, frustrated that after all his efforts to secure a proper request, he's stuck on an errand run to find Aurum fruit. He throws his arms up in exasperation, shouting about the absurdity of the task. After a moment, he steels himself, his resolve returning. Whatever it takes, he will complete this quest and finally become a 7th rank adventurer. He crouched low in the undergrowth, his frustration growing. He had assumed he could just grab whatever fruit he saw and be done with the quest, but no one had warned him it would be this difficult to find. He stood, realizing that the outer areas of the forest had likely been picked clean by others. At this rate, he was going to fail the request entirely. His gaze settled on the rope marking the boundary to the deeper woods. He resolved that if he went deeper, he should be able to find what he was looking for. As he ventured past the boundary, a sudden rustle from the nearby bushes broke the oppressive silence of the forest. He paid it no mind, his focus entirely on his task. There was still nothing that even looked like the fruit he needed. He had to find it soon and get back. Unseen by him, a massive form began to rise from the water just behind. The looming shadow resolved into a monstrous shape, and Gadel spun around with a cry of alarm. A colossal, slimy creature, a mad frog, had emerged from the water. He quickly regained his composure, drawing his sword. He assessed the creature, thinking it was likely a rank 8 monster, one he could probably defeat. "All right, let's go," he shouted, preparing for battle. He charged forward, but before his blade could connect, a dark, sharp appendage shot out from the side, impaling the mad frog through its head. Gadel froze, bewildered. He hadn't even done anything. The life drained from the frog as its massive body was violently dragged away into the dense foliage by an unseen assailant. Thrown back by the motion, Gadel landed hard, splattered with the creature's blood, panting in stunned silence. Paralyzed on the forest floor, the young adventurer Gadel stares up at a new, colossal threat, a 6th-rank assassin snake. He realizes this creature must have dispatched the mad frog from earlier. Frozen by terror, he knows he cannot win and must run, but his body refuses to obey. He closes his eyes, accepting his fate. The massive snake lunges forward with a terrifying hiss, its fangs aimed directly at the helpless Gadel. In an instant, a violent spray of dark fluid erupts through the air. The snake's head is obliterated, its remains collapsing with a heavy thud. Drenched and stunned, Gadel can only mutter a bewildered what. He stares in disbelief. He has been saved, but how? He scans the area, seeing no one. He reasons that the creature couldn't have just burst on its own. Someone must have attacked it, even though the forest was said to have been cleared out. The adrenaline fades, replaced by searing pain from his injuries. He groans, clutching his arm, his thoughts turning to his family. He doesn't want to die. As he despairs, a calm voice calls out to him. He looks up to see a young man with dark hair kneeling before him. The stranger asks if he's all right. Gadel weakly recognizes him as the errand boy, and the stranger observes that he's taken a severe beating. The stranger wonders what a guy like him is doing so far out in the forest, then presses a vial to Gadel's lips, telling him to drink. Gadel recoils in shock, exclaiming about a painful sensation. The stranger looks puzzled, asking if he's still in pain. Gadel quickly stammers that's not what he meant. Looking down, Gadel is stunned to find his body completely healed. He thinks to himself that his bones and guts were wrecked, yet they healed instantly. Such a potion would be impossible for a low-rank adventurer like him to afford. The stranger casually notes that he's now out of the potion, guessing he should have poured it more slowly. He stares at his fully healed body, his mind reeling. He confronts the errand boy, questioning why he would waste such a precious item on him. When the boy simply states it was because he was dying, Gadel's frustration boils over. He grabs the boy's cloak, shouting that the reason is the entire point of his question. Unfazed, the errand boy explains his motivation was simple. He wanted to help, and the cost was irrelevant. Gadel, flustered and unable to comprehend such casual generosity, stammers about being unable to repay him. The errand boy, however, seems to find the situation amusing, even liking the errand boy nickname, and tells Gadel to follow him if he can move. He leads Gadel to a tree laden with orum fruit. The young adventurer is stunned, asking how the errand boy knew about his request. The boy explains that the guild receptionist, Reena, had asked him to accept the same task. He then gently chides Gadel, noting that he must have gotten lost, as orum fruit doesn't typically grow this deep in the woods. The words hit Gadel hard. He clenches his fist, a bitter realization dawning on him. He suspects the receptionist, and even the branch chief knew he would fail and had sent him on this dangerous quest anyway. As Gadel stews in his resentment, the errand boy offers him a freshly picked orum fruit. He explains that the fruit is a key ingredient in recovery potions, the very kind Gadel's sick mother needs. Gadel gasps, shocked that this stranger knows his personal situation. The boy continues, pointing out that even minor requests are vital. If no one collects these simple ingredients, then crucial medicines can't be made. He looks at the stunned adventurer and clarifies that the guild didn't send him as a replacement because they'd given up on Gadel. He urges the young man not to mock errands, emphasizing their importance. Gadel is left speechless by the revelation. The errand boy's tone softens. He acknowledges that earning money is important, but suggests it's worth considering what truly matters to his loved ones. He reveals that the guild staff are worried, seeing him push himself to the brink, trying to provide for his mother and little sister. The kindness and truth in the words finally break through Gadel's pride. Tears stream down his face as he confesses his terror, admitting he truly believed he was going to die. He sobs, realizing that if he had perished, he would have been unable to help his family, leaving them only with grief. Overwhelmed by emotion, his grip tightens, and he accidentally crushes the orum fruit in his hand. As he stares at the pulp in shock, the errand boy suddenly changes the subject, casually wondering if the corpse of the giant snake they encountered would sell for a good price. Gadel snaps out of his despair, exclaiming that he must report the massive creature to the guild. They both turn to look, but where the colossal snake lay, there's only a small, exploded remnant. Gadel is utterly bewildered, unable to comprehend what he's seeing. The errand boy, feigning ignorance, can only suggest that perhaps the creature simply died of old age. He casually dismisses Gadel's concerns, telling him it's probably fine and that he should just say he got lucky and survived. But Gadel is far from convinced, groaning as he worries about how a mere 8th-rank adventurer, like himself, could possibly explain bringing back such a powerful monster. He is especially terrified of how the branch chief will react. To solve the problem, Blanc then offers a simple solution. He'll just say that Gadel defeated it. Gadel immediately shouts back, refusing to be dragged into such a fraud. Blanc is taken aback, surprised to find that Gadel is unexpectedly the serious, honorable type. Still flustered, Gadel accuses Blanc of trying to sell him short. In the aftermath of the battle, the adventurer Gadel offers a share of the reward for the massive frog monster to the man, known as the errand boy, insisting he couldn't have hauled the carcass without his help. The man, however, casually refuses, stating he didn't actually do anything to defeat it. His nonchalance earns him a bewildered look from Gadel, who calls him a weirdo. Stammering, Gadel tries to explain himself, noting that he's only ever heard people refer to him by his moniker. He then gets straight to the point, asking for the man's real name. His intensity grows as he points directly at the dark-haired man, demanding to know his name so he can address him properly. Taken slightly aback by the fervor, the man calmly reveals his name, Bran. A look of understanding dawns on Gagel's face. Beaming, the adventurer loudly introduces himself as Gadel. He fervently thanks Bran for saving him, promising to earn enough cash to pay him back double for the potion. As he runs off, he shouts a vow that Bran will be blown away by his future success. Bran watches him go, a small smile on his face as he thinks to himself what an honest person Gadel is. Sometime later, Bran stands before the guild receptionist, Reena. He smirks, reflecting on Gagel's determined expression. He surmises that Gadel will file a report, but has no idea that Bran himself had a hand in the monster's defeat. He feels he's getting better at hiding his involvement. A shiver of satisfaction runs through him as he realizes he has converted another adventurer to the gospel of errand quests. His strange expression creeps out the other receptionist, Reena. Meanwhile, Reena notes the increasing popularity of such quests and realizes she may need to rethink how the guild handles them. Having concluded his business, Bran turns his attention to the quest board, contemplating his next task. He makes his choice. A heavy door opens, and he begins to walk up a set of stairs, embarking on his newly accepted quest. The quest is a sewer patrol, an assignment avoided across all guild branches. He stands at the entrance to a vast, surprisingly well-maintained underground passage, impressed by its scale. He considers why others avoid this job. It's pitch dark, requiring fuel for lamps, and it stinks of sewage. Furthermore, there's always a chance of encountering criminals. For Bran, however, the darkness is no obstacle, as he can enhance his vision with magic. He confidently descends the wide path into the gloom. He steps into the sewer tunnel, immediately noting the lack of any human presence. Instead, the space is teeming with monsters. He wonders if this area was truly abandoned or simply neglected, understanding why no one would take this job. While the guild buys monster materials, patrols offer no bonus for kills, making it an inefficient way to earn money. Despite the drawbacks, the situation suits him. As a swarm of large, rat-like creatures charges, he effortlessly sidesteps their attack. He briefly touches one as it rushes past, noting its strange texture before it disintegrates into dust. He identifies the vanquished creatures as dust mice. They are merely rank 10 pests. Weak, but their rapid reproduction rate makes them a persistent nuisance. Observing the scene, he deduces that the creatures have only recently arrived. He recognizes them from the demon forest, which makes their presence in the city sewers a mystery. Realizing the threat of their rapid breeding, he resolves to eliminate them all before they can multiply. His resolution leaves him with a new problem: how to dispose of the bodies. Leaving them to rot is not an option, but chopping them up would spread the scent of blood and attract more monsters. He also dismisses the idea of turning them in for payment, as being seen as a monster hunter would undermine the errand guy persona he has cultivated. As he inspects the pile of carcasses, an anomaly catches his eye. One of the creatures has purple fur. He quickly realizes it's not an isolated case. There are more. He identifies them as mutants and considers the horrifying possibility of a contagious disease, which would be a catastrophe. He reaffirms that the corpses must be dealt with immediately. His unique magic, a power connected to the sixth demon king, could obliterate them completely. However, a flash of a winged figure reminds him of the magic's overwhelming strength. He hesitates, knowing he lacks the precise control needed and that a single mistake could cause devastation far beyond the sewer. While patrolling the sewers, Blanc's resolve hardens. He cannot simply ignore something wrong just to save his own skin, reaffirming to himself that his purpose is to help people. With a dismissive grunt, he decides to press on, regardless of how unpopular the task is. With a wave of his hand, he conjures a plume of dark energy to obscure his tracks, musing that he's getting better at covering things up. He hopes no one else stumbles upon this area. As he moves forward, his senses pick up on a distinct anomaly. He notes that while he could sense many things, most of the presences deeper inside felt discolored. He realizes something is definitely amiss, something hidden very well that gives him a bad feeling. He proceeds further down the passage until his hand meets an invisible obstruction shimmering with magical energy. He identifies it as a barrier, wondering what such a thing is doing here, and reasons that investigating it falls under the scope of his current quest. Deciding to take a quick look inside, he channels energy into his hand and strikes the barrier. With a loud crack, the invisible wall fractures and shatters, the force of its destruction surprising him. He stares as the last fragments of the barrier dissipate. The realization hits him. It was real. He takes a cautious step forward into the now unobstructed passage. His surprise gives way to a wry smile. He mutters to himself in disbelief, impressed by the sheer power of the barrier he just destroyed. He reflects on the discovery, realizing that despite having stayed in the town of Claret for quite a while, he had never noticed this massive, hidden structure before. Before him, the grand doors that had been concealed creak open, revealing an impenetrable darkness within. He peers into the gloom, wondering what could possibly be hidden there. He steps through the opening and finds himself in a vast, derelict chamber. The room is a chaotic laboratory, filled with shelves of strange equipment, hanging bird cages, and large glass jars containing unsettling organic specimens. He surveys the chaotic laboratory, realizing the overwhelming presence he'd sensed originated from this very room. Though no people are present, he notices empty cages and concludes this is where the dust mice must have escaped. The scene suggests some form of experimentation. His attention is then drawn to a scattered document, which he picks up, noticing an unfamiliar crest upon it. The moment his fingers brush against the crest, a sharp pain lances through his head. He grimaces, recognizing the sensation. It is just like the random, unexplained bursts of knowledge he occasionally experiences. He wonders if his crest is the source of that phenomenon. Despite the discomfort, he resolves to gather whatever documents he can. Before he can act, a torrent of dark, swirling energy erupts violently from a document. The blast instantly incinerates the surrounding papers. As a deafening roar fills the laboratory, he can only watch, stunned by the sudden release of power. The swirling energy solidifies, forming a colossal beast with a lion's head and a mane of roaring flame. For a moment, he wonders if he's facing a rank 1 king beast. But a closer look reveals the horrifying truth. It is not a natural creature. It is a grotesque amalgamation, a chimera stitched together from the parts of various monsters from the demon forest. Before Bran stand a monstrous beast, a chimera, one of humanity's forbidden taboos. The artificially modified creature, with its lion-like head and fiery mane, lets out a ferocious roar as it lunges forward. As it charges, Bran calmly assesses the situation, a thought crossing his mind that this creature wasn't what he had been led to expect. He observes the chimera more closely, his eyes narrowing as he realizes it's merely a grotesque amalgamation of other monsters. The sight fills him with a profound sense of disgust. Annoyed, he wonders aloud how people can even create such things now. Without hesitation, he springs into action, his blade a swift arc that cleanly severs one of the creature's appendages with a distinct pop before he continues his fluid assault. In the midst of the fight, a sudden realization hits him as he spots dead mice in a nearby cage. He clutches his throat, coughing, as he identifies the threat: poison. The chimera confirms his suspicion with a mighty roar, unleashing a visible cloud of the toxin. Bran hacks and coughs, realizing this creature's mutation is the source of the poison that affected the dust mice. His coughing subsides as he turns to face the bisected creature. He coolly informs the dying beast that it was tough luck for it, because poison doesn't work on him. He stands alone amidst the carnage, the two halves of the chimera lying in a path of destruction he carved. A final cough escapes him as the last of the poison mist dissipates. He picks up a piece of the creature, only for it to crumble to dust. He notes that the fire and poison mist wrecked the room, regretting that he couldn't salvage a sample. Since the mutation was from poison, not a virus, there's no need for an outbreak report. Still, the overpowering stench makes him regret having enhanced senses. Crouching in the ruins, Bran considers the situation. He doesn't know who ran the lab, but they were strong enough to capture these monsters. He decides this is something he must report to his master. A thought of Reena's surfaces, imagining her telling him not to bear things alone. He dismisses it with a sigh, acknowledging that's exactly what she would say. He stood over the corpse of the chimera, contemplating his next move. Burning the body to erase all traces, as he had with the dust mice, was an option. However, he quickly dismissed it as too risky. Someone capable of creating the barrier he destroyed would surely notice the lingering magic and realize who had been there, even with the spells he'd already cast throughout the sewers. Then, a new idea struck him. If he had only used magic out in the open, but employed a completely different method inside the hidden lab, the pursuers might conclude that two different people were involved. A perfect misdirection. A confident smirk crossed his face. The plan would work. His skills of deception were, after all, quite solid. With his course of action set, he turned to leave. He would simply report back that nothing had happened, marking another job as complete. Whoever owned this place would surely return, and they could clean up their own mess. The fact that they hid it so deep meant it was something worth concealing, and therefore worth protecting. Not long after, a man in a lab coat arrived at the destroyed chamber, collapsing to his knees in utter disbelief. "What is this?" he shrieked. He couldn't comprehend how it was possible. The barrier had been layered with concealment magic, so precise that even a top-tier adventurer shouldn't have noticed it. Yet, someone had been strong enough to break through and defeat the chimera, apparently, without using any magic at all. It was unbelievable. His shock curdled into pure fury. He declared it unforgivable, lamenting that he had been working in this backwater dump to rebuild their legacy ever since the Sword Saint had stolen their results. "Who dares interfere with our organization?" he roared, unleashing a swirling vortex of dark energy from his hand, a black vault. Meanwhile, back at the Adventurers Guild, Bran stood before Reena and Lena, his expression hardening. He knew the culprit behind the lab was strong. In a separate space, the enraged researcher's face twisted into a malicious grin as he vowed, "I will find them, and they'll pay dearly for what they've done." On the storm-racked peaks of Heavenly Thunder Mountain, the adventurer Reena confronts a massive, chimera-like beast. With a confident smirk, she announces that after a long chase, she has finally cornered the creature. She identifies her quarry as a Danger Class 1 Holy Thunder Beast. As lightning crackles around her, she declares that their long game of tag is finally about to end. Her mind flashes back to a warning she received at the guild. A colleague had called her plan to go to the lightning-attracting mountain completely reckless, stating that even a party of Class 1 adventurers would struggle. Reena had acknowledged the danger, admitting she never thought she could beat the beast by herself, but her resolve was firm. Even so, despite the odds, she had faced it. Her face, now bruised and bloodied, breaks into a fierce grin as memories of being thrown back and beaten down by the beast flicker through her mind. She had fought again and again and again. Each clash was a testament to her unrelenting will, refusing to yield no matter how many times she was struck down. Her power, as insane as ever, erupts in a blinding flash, striking the beast and forcing a roar of pain from its throat. But the battle is far from over. The struggle continues. Then, a calm settles over her. She looks upon the beast and declares that she is stronger now. After 4 long years of struggle, she thanks the creature for making her stronger before delivering a decisive, powerful blow. The Holy Thunder Beast is down. Reena lets out a raw, triumphant scream before collapsing from sheer exhaustion. As she lies on the ground, she whispers that maybe now she has finally taken one step closer to him. The scene shifts. Back at the guild, Reena's face is a mask of utter disbelief and shock. The words she just heard echo in her mind. He quit. She slumps over the guild counter in disbelief, muttering no way. As Lena tries to console her, the receptionist explains that things have been rough since he left. The void he created is huge, and they're barely managing the noble requests he used to handle. Lena adds that it was wild for Reena to spend 4 years chasing a single contract, but then tries to look on the bright side, noting that with Reena's return, they can finally clear out the rest of his work. Her despair instantly ignites into a furious resolve. Slamming her hands on the counter, she vows to track him down no matter what, roaring his title, Black Emperor. Far away, the man himself, Blanc, stirs from his sleep with a simple yawn, completely unaware of the adventurer's obsessive hunt. As they walk along a country road, Reena cheerfully remarks that it's perfect weather for odd jobs. Blanc agrees, and she laughingly asks if that isn't every day for him, to which he responds with a quiet chuckle. They continue on their way, passing a fence pasture. Reena reaffirms her goal to become a reliable adventurer that people can depend on. Blanc listens, but privately expresses doubt, thinking to himself that this particular job doesn't seem to offer any valuable experience. His surprise is evident as he turns to face her. She explains with bright-eyed conviction that it was only after becoming a Grade 0 adventurer that she understood her true desire: to help the local people however she is able. Their conversation is interrupted by a friendly woman in an apron, the client, who happily greets the adventurers. As Reena turns to her, Blanc reflects on his companion's attitude. He realizes she grasped something fundamental from the start, accepting jobs with a clear purpose, and admires her brilliant adventurer spirit. The client expresses her delight and relief that both of them have arrived to help. After they exchange pleasantries, she gestures towards a large, fluffy sheep bleating loudly and begins to explain the day's request. She leads them to a pen crowded with sheep, clarifying that their task is to help care for the livestock. Staring at the flock, Reena voices her apprehension, admitting she has no experience with animals and doubts her ability to handle the task. Blanc attempts to reassure her, breaking the job down into simple steps. Move the sheep out, clean the shed, and then return them. He notes that since the client has other errands, they will be working alone. She seems to catch his hesitation, asking if he said something. He quickly brushes it off, urging they get started. Privately, he concedes that he is actually the one who is more worried, but reasons that it should be fine since the job doesn't require any particular excellence. He tells her he will go prepare the cleaning supplies while she starts moving the animals outside. Reena agrees and opens the pen's gate, but then stops dead in her tracks, frozen. Seeing her strange stillness, Blanc calls out her name, Arya. He walks up behind her, bewildered by her reaction. He points out the absurdity of the situation, questioning how she can fight packs of forest snakes but be terrified of harmless sheep. With a nervous blush, Reena stammers, her eyes wide with fear as she asks if the creature will bite. Steeling herself against her fear, she slams her hands down with a shout of resolve. She tries to rationalize her terror, insisting that this is simply different from her usual battles, but a task that must be done regardless. From the doorway, Blanc offers a word of encouragement. With her resolve freshly declared, she approaches the pen, only for her confidence to waver. She weakly pleads with the flock of sheep, asking them to please cooperate. Her plea goes unanswered. The sheep remain stubbornly still. Deciding she has no other choice, Reena announces she will carry them out by force. She grabs onto one of the animals and heaves, but it doesn't move an inch. She stares in disbelief, wondering how it can be so solid. Just as she questions the sheep's impossible weight, the creature lets out a loud bah and shifts its position, sending an unprepared Reena flying backward with a startled cry. She tumbles through the air, only to be caught securely by Blanc, who has stepped in from behind. Startled by the sudden support, she calls out his name. He looks down at her, calmly asking if she is still unable to get the sheep out. A faint, knowing smile plays on Blanc's lips. Moments later, standing outside the pen, a deeply embarrassed Reena apologizes profusely for her failure. He simply tells her not to worry about it. In a farmyard, Blanc stands silently before an agitated flock of large, horned sheep. The animals kick and snort, refusing to be herded, leaving Reena to look on in exasperation. Moments later, both Reena and the farm owner stare in amazement at the now calm flock. Reena asks how he did it, calling it incredible, while the owner marvels that even the most stubborn sheep gave in. Blanc, looking slightly puzzled by their reaction, simply states that he intimidated them a little. He explains that it's nothing new for animals to get scared of him, though he didn't think it would be this effective. He reflects that his power works on monsters without reason, and on people, it's even more potent, causing them to pass out. Beside him, Reena quietly wonders if this is related to the Demon King's sixth heart she's heard about. As he finishes his thought, Blanc suddenly leaps with silent agility, landing perfectly on a wooden beam in the rafters above, much to Reena's surprise. This contrasts sharply with Reena's own earlier attempt, where she had stood before the flock and yelled with all her might, ordering the sheep to get back inside. Her effort had clearly failed. Now, she stands dejectedly beside Blanc, admitting that intimidation is hard and that what he did was real. As she speaks, the sheep begin to stir again near the barn entrance. She turns to him with a new resolve, calling him by his name, Blanc. She asks if he would accept a request to teach her his intimidation technique, noting that she wouldn't mind if it's just for a task like this. In response, he simply turns toward the flock and issues a single, sharp command. Get in. The sheep immediately scramble into the barn. From inside, the farm owner watches, utterly amazed by the instant obedience. With the task completed, the farm owner happily thanks them. She pets one of her now docile sheep, remarking that her babies are quite moody and asking if the job was tough. Reena laughs in response. The one stubborn sheep now bleats softly, completely pacified as its owner gently holds its face. At the Adventurers Guild counter, Blanc makes a sudden announcement to Reena and Arya. He has decided to take a month off. Though taken aback by the abruptness, Reena agrees. Her initial surprise gives way to an enthusiastic, "Yes, sir," before a flicker of insecurity prompts her to ask if his departure is because she's a slow learner. He quickly dismisses her concern, assuring her that she is doing well and that repetition is the key to progress. Before he can elaborate, Gadel loudly interrupts, questioning Blanc's decision. Reena then asks if he is serious about the time off, prompting Blanc to wonder if he even needs to report it. This only agitates Gadel, who demands to know why he would announce it if it wasn't necessary. Reena clarifies that while adventurers are free, his friends would worry if he disappeared unexpectedly. The mention of reporting sends Blanc into a brief, dark memory of his past as the Black Emperor, when rest was a privilege that had to be formally requested. Shaking off the memory, he reveals his destination. He is heading home to the Lead-Ion Empire, a journey that will take nearly 2 weeks one way. As other adventurers nearby wonder aloud what he's been up to lately, Blanc quietly reaffirms his plan to himself. His contemplation is interrupted by Reena calling his name. She makes the connection, noting that the Lead-Ion Empire was the main territory of the Black Emperor, and asks if he is returning there to live his best life. He wryly considers the idea before being swarmed by his guildmates. Arya and Gadel both declare his absence a problem, exclaiming that they will miss him. The younger adventurers also protest, shocked at the idea of him being gone for a whole month. Amidst the commotion, Reena laughs softly, conceding that they might be right. The protests escalate into demands for souvenirs, only to be silenced by the sharp voice of the branch chief telling the brats to quiet down. A short time later, outside the guild hall, the moment of departure arrives. As Arya watches and processes the fact that Blanc is from the powerful Lead-Ion Empire, he says his goodbyes to the 2 young adventurers, who wish him safe travels. With a final, "I'll be off," he turns and begins his journey. As he walks away, Arya and Reena discuss the perplexing situation. Arya notes that Lead-Ion is home to the main guild branch and the most S-class adventurers, and that even the menial tasks Blanc enjoys are more plentiful there. They are both left wondering why someone with his background would end up at their tiny, remote guild. She continues her musings with her colleague, Reena, who gently reminds her that it's bad manners to pry into an adventurer's past. Reena agrees, but can't shake her curiosity, wondering aloud why someone like Blanc would choose to register at their remote guild. Reena reacts with a jolt, suddenly understanding. She accuses Reena of being interested in Blanc, reminding her that she had previously denied it. Reena dismisses the idea, but Reena presses on, asking rhetorically if she wouldn't hate it if a potential partner had a hidden, dark past. Flustered, Reena sits down and insists that's not what this is about. Reena continues her teasing, advising her to aim for a better man if she's looking for a partner, and then playfully declares that she and Blanc are a perfect match. Annoyed, Reena crosses her arms and retorts that a man with no ambition is an absolute deal-breaker for her. The journey from the town of Claret to the Lead-Ion Empire is a long one, requiring a month on foot or a week by carriage. Opting for the former, the young man known as Blanc travels the road alone. As he walks, a man driving a beast-drawn carriage approaches, calling out to him. The driver warns that traveling alone is dangerous and offers a ride, but their conversation is cut short by the sudden, ferocious attack of monstrous boars. The threat is dispatched with swift efficiency. With the slain beasts lying nearby, the grateful travelers emerge from their wagon. An older man thanks Blanc profusely, calling him a lifesaver and insisting they repay him, even offering a ride to his destination. A small girl from the group shyly approaches, calling him Big Brother and offering a piece of fruit as thanks for protecting them. While appreciative, Blanc politely declines their offer of a ride, stating his preference to continue the journey on foot. He walks on alone, taking a bite of the gifted fruit. The taste is exquisite, unlike anything he has ever had, reminding him how vast the world truly is. He hopes to find more in the capital, considering the chance encounter a good omen. He consults a map, contemplating his decision to take a month off. He knows he could run and arrive much faster, but dismisses the idea to avoid causing a scene. Instead, he decides to take a shortcut through the mountains, away from the main path. His path takes him deep into the wilderness. After being cooped up for so long, he stretches his arms wide, taking a moment to relax and enjoy the fresh forest air. 3 days later, however, the novelty has worn off. Lounging in a tree, he sighs with boredom, feeling he's had more than enough forest bathing recently. Just then, his senses detect a strange aura, and he leaps down to investigate, realizing he's found a barrier. He stands before the shimmering magical field. A faint smirk crosses his face as he recognizes its nature. It feels similar to the barrier from the sewer incident, only weaker. He considers it a waste of energy to shatter, but resigns himself to dealing with it anyway. His gaze pierces the barrier's light, revealing a building in the distance. Nearby, 2 men, perhaps guards, are talking amongst themselves, one questioning if they even need guards, the other mentioning bandits. Blanc observes, wondering what this strange place could be. He listens from the cover of the trees as the guards complain. One mentions that their comfortable life is thanks to a special experiment involving golems, run by a criminal syndicate. The other warns him not to overdo it with the fun, noting that he's already ruined enough girls and that they're often broken by the time they're handed over. Blanc's expression hardens as he processes the grim reality of the situation. His patience shattered, he moves. A dark blur of motion is all that's seen as one of the guards is violently struck, his face contorted in shock. His companion, hearing the sudden thud, turns in confusion, wondering what just happened. Before the second guard can fully process the noise, a small, dark projectile embeds itself in his forehead with lethal force. He falls without another word. With a curse under his breath, Blanc unleashes his fury, cutting down the remaining guards in a swift and brutal assault. Standing over the fallen men, he questions his own recent impulsiveness. He realizes that if he had let them talk a little longer, he might have gathered more intelligence about the facility's interior. Regardless, he turns his attention to the large, imposing doors of the main building. It is time to see what lies within. Before entering, he extends a hand, sensing a handful of human signatures inside, along with some fainter ones. He grimly wonders if they are test subjects or simply playthings. The thought triggers a memory of his master, who had repeatedly taught him about helping people, a concept he never truly understood back then. The memory solidifies his resolve. He pulls his mask over his face and adjusts his hood, speaking to the memory of his teacher. He asks if his master would be glad to know he has finally found his own will to help others, and silently asks him to bear witness to his actions. The aftermath is a scene of total devastation. Blanc stands silently amidst the wreckage and the bodies of the facility's internal guards, his grim task of clearing the way now complete. Inside the enemy facility, the hooded intruder narrowly dodges a crushing blow from a hulking stone golem. He lands silently, acknowledging the close call with a soft grunt as the golem's fist shatters the floor. He leaps through a corridor, his mind racing. He knows he could face the guards head-on, but if they managed to take hostages, the situation would become far more difficult. He concludes that his first priority must be to rescue the captives. The sounds of shouting guards echo from behind, confirming his fears that a completely silent approach is impossible. Realizing he can feel the captive's presence just ahead, he shoves open a heavy metal door, only to stop dead in his tracks, his eyes widening at the scene before him. He stares into a grim, makeshift infirmary. Several young women lie unconscious on metal beds, hooked up to strange devices. His gaze locks onto one of them, a girl with a distinctive dark streak in her hair, and a wave of shock washes over him. Suddenly, a chaotic memory fragment flashes through his mind. A researcher's frantic voice speaking of results, compatibility, and yet another failure. The disjointed words paint a picture of cruel experimentation. The vision overwhelms him. He stumbles back, clutching his head as a sharp pain radiates through his skull. He gasps, wondering what that flash was, and if the distorted images were somehow connected to him. Another fleeting image appears, his younger self with his master, and he questions if these are his own memories. Shaking it off, he forces himself to focus. Now is not the time to dwell on it. He has a mission to complete. He presses on and finds a large, barred cell. Inside, a group of terrified young women, including the one with the streaked hair, huddle together. As they ask who he is, he announces plainly that he has come to help. With the cell door open, he urges the freed captives to leave immediately. The women are overcome with emotion. One sobs with relief at the thought of going home, while another stares at him in disbelief, murmuring that he's really there to save them. Amid the relief, one of the rescued girls looks down at a companion who has collapsed on the floor. Her face filled with desperation, she turns to their rescuer and asks, "What about the others?" He kneels beside the woman who succumbed to her ordeal, gently closing her eyes. "May you rest in peace," he murmurs. The other rescued women watch, their faces etched with sorrow and exhaustion. Rising to his feet, he turns his attention to the living. "The bandits will be here any minute," he states urgently. "We have to go." Through her tears, one of the women nods in understanding. "Okay." He addresses the frightened group by a large metal door. "I'll handle them. Can I trust you to look after everyone here?" One of the women starts to agree, but his head snaps to the side as his senses flare. They're here already. A wave of panic ripples through the captives. His attention shifts back to the captives. "You didn't know about this place?" he asks. The dark-haired woman shakes her head. "No, they always moved us blindfolded, so..." The realization of their situation dawns on the others, their expressions twisting in horror. He processes this new information, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. A bandaged woman, frail and weak, looks up at him. "Will the others be all right?" she asks. He meets her gaze, offering a measure of comfort. "Yeah, their minds are clouded from drugs, but their bodies are unharmed." A hooded figure appears within the grim facility, immediately drawing the attention of a group of rough-looking men. One of them points, identifying him as the intruder. The hooded man, Blanc, is disoriented, wondering how he arrived here and why he feels all right despite the circumstances. A nauseating, churning sensation builds within him as he takes in the scene. The men begin to taunt him. Their apparent leader, a large man with a mustache, scoffs at the idea that Blanc came with some foolish sense of justice to save the women they held captive. He calls him an idiot for coming alone and interrupting their fun. He then challenges the silent figure to speak, mocking his apparent fear. In an instant, he closes the distance, his hand seizing the leader's collar. With his other hand, he presses a small, sharp blade against the man's throat, his masked face inches away. "Who are you?" he demands, his voice cold and menacing. The room is suddenly a scene of utter carnage. Jagged black spikes have erupted from the floor and walls, impaling every guard. Blanc stands amidst the slaughter, his attention fixed on the leader, who is still alive but pinned and screaming in agony. "What is this facility?" Blanc asks again. "Why are you doing this?" The impaled man can only writhe and scream. Blanc's voice cuts through the noise, filled with rage. "What the hell did you do? Answer my questions." As he speaks, he feels a strange, tingling sensation spread through his own arm and leg, a disquieting physical response to the chaos. He turns away from the screaming man, a sudden realization dawning on him. Seeing his chance, the guard begins to beg for his life. "Help me. I'll die like this. We don't know anything. We have nothing to do with this." The man's pleas grow more desperate. He confesses they were merely following orders from someone who always wore a hood. This person gave them the location and power, and in return, they were to attack merchants and travelers and bring him captives. Blanc glances at the bodies, confirming the man was their leader, before his gaze shifts to a nearby doorway. From the doorway, a group of terrified women watch. One points a trembling finger, whispering that it's all his fault. The dying bandit continues to beg, admitting he was wrong. Blanc turns to the women. "My business is finished," he states flatly. "Do what you want with him." He turns his back on them all, walking away without a second glance as the bandit's final, horrifying screams fill the air. Further inside, he finds one of the captives collapsed on the floor. He kneels, checking on her, and determines that she should recover with time. Then, producing a syringe, he injects the contents into his own arm. He knows a drug was used on him, but without knowing what it was, he can only brace for potential side effects. He lets out a weary sigh, dismissing the confusing fragments of knowledge that surfaced in his mind. Such difficult matters, he decided, could be discussed with his master when they eventually met. For now, he had more immediate concerns. Turning his attention to the freed captives, he is asked what they should do now. The elf-like woman explains their dire situation. Their families and fortunes have been stolen, leaving them with no place to go. In response, he proposes a destination while they travel by cart. He tells them to seek refuge in the Galston Empire, explaining that the nearest city is well-developed and its lord is a person of integrity who will offer them protection. The women express their heartfelt gratitude. As their cart crests a hill, one of the women gasps, having spotted their destination in the distance, the high, protective walls of a city. The sight of the city walls brings a wave of joyous relief over the group. They celebrate, realizing they have truly escaped their captors and reached safety. He watches them run ahead towards the city gates, a faint, satisfied smile on his face as he sees them to safety. At that same moment, perched on a high vantage point, the sword Saint Clol pauses. Her keen senses pick up on something unexpected, a flicker of interest crossing her face. She turns, her gaze sweeping over the mountainous terrain. A nostalgic feeling washes over her as she identifies a familiar presence, heralding a long-awaited reunion. A confident smile graces her lips. "It's good that you seem well," she thinks, her expression softening as she speaks the name of the one she has found, Bran. In an infirmary filled with rescued captives, a local lord addresses two young women who have finally found safety. He thanks them for recounting their harrowing experience. The lord muses that while the situation is an improvement over the Black Forest incident, the existence of a bandit group powerful enough to establish a base in the treacherous Bile Mountains is highly unusual and suspicious. Now seated and being briefed by an official, the lord inquires about the condition of the rescued individuals. He then turns his attention back to the women, asking if they know anything about their rescuer. The dark-haired woman explains that they know very little, only that he was a young man. The lord listens intently, absorbing the scant details. His mind flashes to the image of a hooded figure. He wonders aloud if this person, who confidently stated the captives would recover, might have some knowledge of the research facility they were held in. He considers it a possibility. However, the light-haired woman clarifies that their rescuers seem surprised by the facility and even appear to be lost at one point. This new information visibly startles the lord. The lord recoils, clutching his head in frustration. He apologizes for pressing them, then shouts in exasperation, questioning how their rescuer could have known the children's condition without knowing about the facility. The women flinch, trying to calm him. He falls into a deep, analytical silence. He reasons that this individual single-handedly traversed the Bile Mountains and annihilated a bandit group. This implies power of at least a rank 2 adventurer, yet no such person has been reported in the area. The lord's expression hardens with a fervent desire to meet this mysterious figure. Regaining his composure, the lord addresses the women's concerns about their future. He reassures them, promising all possible support and aid. They will have the choice to remain in the city or be safely escorted back to their homes. As the women are led away to rest, the lord walks with his aide. He notes that the captives' diverse origins strongly suggest the bandits were using teleportation magic to conduct their raids across various locations. His face set with determination, the lord declares that he must urgently report this to the country and initiate an investigation. With a final command to his aide, he strides forward, ready to act. The Black Forest, a place where the magical density is so high that dangerous creatures thrive, and the very leaves on the trees are stained black, giving the forest its name. Though no demon king resides here, its peril is said to rival that of the demon's forest itself. A wave of nostalgia washes over Bran as he stands amidst the gnarled trees, surrounded by the snarls of monstrous beasts. He recalls how he was often made to practice with his sword in this very forest, a harsh training regimen that ultimately honed his skills in detecting presences. He turns his thoughts to his master's house, wondering where it might be. His reminiscence is cut short. He pauses, his expression shifting to one of keen alertness. Standing still within a small clearing, he focuses, confirming his suspicion. There is indeed a subtle presence nearby. He quickly identifies them, adventurers. More than that, he realizes several are positioned around his master's home. It's a stakeout. With a sigh, he deduces they must be searching for him, and that his master is likely being investigated as a result. He recalls his master's words, her confident smirk as she assured him that even if she told anyone his location, they would never believe her, but that she would remain silent regardless. Knowing the main approach is watched, he resolves that he has no choice but to use a hidden path. He makes his way through a set of weathered ruins, noting how unnaturally quiet it is, devoid of the monsters that should be here. He figures that such a conspicuous landmark must have been searched thoroughly already, whether there was anything to find or not. Then he finds it. There it is, he thinks, approaching a specific section of a large stone wall. Recalling the sequence, he presses a specific spot, then another, manipulating a hidden mechanism until a soft click echoes in the silence. With a grinding sound, a large slab of the stone floor slides away, revealing a dark staircase descending into the earth. He peers down into the opening, satisfied. All right, he stops short. An unexpected draft of wind flows out from the dark passage, brushing past his face. His eyes widen slightly. HM? What's this airflow? He is suddenly blasted backward, crying out as he hits the ground. Stunned, he can only stammer in disbelief. As a figure calmly approaches, their footsteps echoing softly, he realizes with a jolt that he failed to sense their presence until they were right upon him. It has been a long time, he thinks, since anyone was capable of such a feat. His expression tightens as he looks up, recognizing the imposing figure. With a mix of shock and gravity, he utters a single word, Master. Standing over him is the sword Saint Clol, a faint, knowing smirk on her face as she addresses him by name, Bran. In a blur of motion, two blades clash with a piercing shriek of steel. The sword Saint Clol presses her attack against the young man, Blanc, whose face is a mask of exertion as he struggles to hold her off. He is thrown back by the force of the blow, catching his balance. What a greeting! Master, he exclaims. Cole lands gracefully, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips as she regards her former student. She explains that it seems he hasn't wasted the last 3 years, which is a relief to her. She adds that if he were to use magic, those searching for him might find him. Blanc listens intently, a realization dawning on him. He acknowledges her reasoning, but she clarifies that there are other reasons as well. That is precisely why she only allowed him to use magic while he was active as an adventurer. Cole reveals a shocking truth. Blanc's innate magical power was so immense that he was in danger of being killed by it. She taught him magic specifically so he could learn to control it. The revelation hits Blanc with the force of a physical blow. He was on the verge of being destroyed by his own power. She continues, noting that despite this, her own specialty is swordsmanship. Blanc quietly processes the gravity of his past situation, his expression somber. Therefore, she explains she also taught him the sword, and it seems to have served him well. As she speaks, she gives his head a condescending pat. Humble, Blanc thanks her for everything. He confesses that he thought he had become independent through his own strength, but now sees he was being protected by his master all along. He feels he can never repay her, admitting she is truly amazing and has only gotten stronger. He starts to ask a question. Master, but is cut off. Chloe raises her sword with a challenging smirk, declaring that they'll need to verify his progress a little more. Blanc quickly objects, warning that fighting in such a place will alert the watchers. Chloe dismisses his concern, stating that from this distance, adventurers of that caliber won't notice a thing. She wastes no time, lunging forward with a playful smirk. With them having finally reunited in a place free from prying eyes, she declares they must enjoy themselves to the fullest. Blanc, caught off guard, twists away to dodge the sudden advance. He desperately evades her swift movements, pleading for his master to wait. He protests that he can't learn anything if she's just dodging and he's forced to be reserved. In response, she challenges him to come at her without hesitation. In an instant, the chase is over. Chloe appears behind him, her arm wrapped around his neck, holding him fast. Caught you, she says with a grin, remarking that he was always like this in the past. As the alley wall crumbles from the force of their brief clash, Blanc can only marvel internally that he managed to endure it all. Forced to his knees, he looks up at her, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. He admits with a sigh that he still can't catch up to her. His former master confidently states that of course he can't. She has forged her path with the sword alone. She reassures him, however, telling him not to be discouraged just because he can't win, because he has definitely grown stronger. Intrigued, Blanc asks why she thinks so. Panting on the ground, Blanc pleads for her to go easy on him, but Cole remarks that if she were to get serious, the narrow alley would be obliterated in an instant. Blanc concedes the point. He explains that even though he can't catch up, he has grown enough to understand the vast difference in their power. This realization seems to strike a chord with Chloe. Her expression softens. Kneeling down, she pulls him into a firm embrace. Good, she says simply. Startled, Blanc protests that he's an adult now and she shouldn't keep treating him like a child. At a table, the young man known as Blanc explains to his master, Chloe, that while he has returned to report on his time in Claret, there is something more pressing he needs to ask her. Intrigued, she agrees to hear him out. As he begins to ask if she knows about a particular thing, a bead of sweat forms on Chloe's temple, her expression hardening with a hint of annoyance. He explains that he came to her precisely because he didn't know what it was, and he's dismayed that even she is unaware. Changing tactics abruptly, he asks her to draw a dog for him, a request that leaves Chloe baffled. After a moment of frantic scribbling, he proudly presents his drawing. Chloe stares at the chaotic mess of lines, utterly bewildered as she asks what the object is even supposed to be. In response to her confusion, he asks if it isn't obvious. Chloe, pinching the bridge of her nose in exasperation, mutters to herself, questioning if she should even bother asking what kind of dog it is. His earnest, bright smile is met with a weary, almost amused smile from Chloe, who seems to have accepted the absurdity of the situation. Returning to the matter at hand, she tells him his attempt at drawing is worse than the monstrosity he's trying to describe. She instructs him to simply state what he saw. He struggles to articulate the image, describing a human figure facing one way and a demon figure facing the other, with their lower halves swirling together. As he speaks, a look of sudden realization dawns on Chloe's face. Her suspicion confirmed, she shows him a proper drawing of the symbol, a conjoined human and demon. Blanc is stunned, confirming it's exactly what he saw in Claret's underground waterway in a facility in the Pialdo Mountains. The revelation leaves him speechless. Chloe then asks if he's aware that humans and demons are adversaries. After he confirms, she explains that the symbol represents the Majinkai, the Demon-Human Association, an organization born from an alliance between the two races. Blanc is shocked by the news. He stood in stunned silence, processing the revelation. He asked if this meant humans had sided with the Demon King. Chloe corrected him, explaining that the demons of the Majinkai had actually betrayed the Demon King and were acting on their own. She elaborated that they were researching the fusion of demons and humans to create a new species, and to that end, They had been abducting people across the land to serve as materials for their experiments. To illustrate her point, she held up a small vial of dark liquid. She asked if he knew what it was. Blanc identified it as blood. Cole confirmed it was a drug made primarily from demon blood, intended to transform a subject's body from the inside. However, she dismissed it as a failure. In the initial stages, it only caused mental confusion, from which a person could still recover. But as it progressed, the subject would fall into a frenzied state, losing all reason until their body ultimately rejected the foreign blood, resulting in death. It was nothing more than a failed poison. She added that she, along with other S-rank adventurers and night orders, had once annihilated the organization, but it seemed the survivors had regrouped and resumed their dark ambitions. He insisted that they had to report this to the kingdom. Klul, however, remained firm, telling him not to interfere. She stated that this was their problem to solve, as they were the ones who had failed to completely eradicate the group before. As Blanc began to protest, she cut him off, adding that the most important thing to those people was something else entirely. She then placed both hands on his head, ruffling his hair with a smile. She told him it was fine, that he was free now and had started a new life. She urged him not to worry about her, and to simply enjoy his own life. With a look of resignation, he quietly agreed. Just as their conversation concluded, the door burst open. A young woman rushed in, tears streaming down her face as she cried out, "Kroll-sama." The sudden, frantic entrance startled them both, feeling like the ominous prelude to a storm. The woman, Reena, looked at Klul with desperate eyes, mentioning that the Black Emperor had quit. Blanc was taken aback, wondering how she knew his former title. He had a fleeting thought about how he could now make tea on his own, and whether his master would be surprised by such a simple skill. Before he could process it all, Reena rushed forward and threw her arms around Klul in a tight embrace. As Blanc watched in utter confusion, Klul reacted not with recognition, but with annoyance, shouting, "Who the hell are you?" Inside a room lined with bookshelves, Krull formally introduces her two disciples. She presents Reena, who clings to her looking distraught, and then gestures to Bran, who appears uncomfortable with the situation. Reena immediately turns on Bran, grabbing Krull's arm and demanding to know why he quit and where the Black Emperor is now. Bran quietly dismisses her concern. She continues her frantic explanation, noting that Bran is now just a humble adventurer in a real-light kingdom. She laments that she has been on a long assignment on Tenrai Mountain for years, so her information is outdated, only now learning that he quit a year ago. Bran looks on, surprised she was unaware. Overwhelmed, Reena collapses to her knees before Krull, crying out in shock that the Black Emperor is gone now that she has finally returned. As Krull tells her to calm down, Bran internally remarks that Tenrai Mountain is a dangerous place and Reena must be quite strong. He notes Krull praising her efforts, but Krull coldly states that the fact remains he quit. Still kneeling, Reena tearfully questions why anyone would abandon the prestigious status of a Grade 0 adventurer, though she concedes that not everyone is fixated on status. As she despairs, Krull places a hand on her head and calmly tells a bewildered Bran that this is simply the way it is. Bran is completely baffled by the non-explanation. He reflects on his new life, acknowledging that while it's more fulfilling and enjoyable, he feels he's just doing as he pleases. He wonders if this is the important path his master spoke of. Nearby, Krull watches him with a knowing smile. His thoughts are interrupted. He turns to Reena, who is still on the floor, and asks if she is free now that her long-term request is over. She confirms she isn't taking on new requests, to which he replies that her timing is perfect. At that moment, Krull interjects, instructing an astonished Bran to look after Reena for a while. Both he and Reena are shocked. Krull explains that she has urgent business to attend to and cannot deal with Reena herself. Bran immediately suspects this business is related to the Demon Association. Krull then offers to tell Bran the Black Emperor's location if he agrees to her request. The proposition irritates Bran, who realizes she still sees him as a child who needs looking after, while Reena remains stunned by the entire exchange. He stands in stunned silence, his mind reeling from the sudden turn of events. With a defeated sigh, he mutters his acceptance. Krull confirms it's true, while Reena, standing beside her, asks with wide-eyed hope if he really means it. Before he can process it further, Reena joyfully throws her arms around his neck, pulling him into a tight embrace. She enthusiastically declares that she will take full responsibility for looking after him. She holds him fast, her excitement palpable, as Krull observes the scene with a faint, satisfied smile. Bran remains trapped in the unexpected hug, his expression a mixture of shock and confusion. With the matter settled, Krull leans out a nearby window, addressing them both. She tells them they must be tired from their long journeys and should rest for the night, assuring them she will take care of things for now. From outside, both Bran and Reena dutifully agree. Sometime later, Bran enters a room he recognizes as his own, surprised to find it still there. He had assumed it would have been cleared out, having heard Krull took on other disciples. He wonders why she kept it and where those other disciples might be. He stands with his arms crossed, deep in thought. He realizes that in all his time in this house, he can't recall meeting anyone other than his master. His duties as the Black Emperor kept him too busy to visit often. The memories of that time are hazy. The gaps in his memory stir an unfamiliar anxiety within him. He can't shake the feeling that something is wrong, that he should remember more than he does. His troubled thoughts are cut short by a knock on the door. A voice calls out, telling him to enter. He turns, wondering if he's losing his mind. Opening the door, he finds Reena standing in the hallway. She looks at him with concern and asks what's wrong, noting that she had a similar thought just a moment ago. He looks her over and bluntly points out that she's filthy. Reena explains that their master had just thrown her, but told her the bath was free and to get cleaned up. She then adds that she has a message for him from Krull. He looks at Reena, who has just appeared before him. She glances back over her shoulder, relaying their master's message. She says, "Don't get depressed." Confused, he lets out a hollow laugh and asks what she's talking about. Fresh from a bath, Blanc is drying his hair with a towel when a voice calls out, asking what Krull-sama is doing. A young woman with a high ponytail announces that Krull has made dinner. Behind her, Krull herself stands with a confident smirk. The woman then turns to the bewildered Blanc, asking if something is wrong. He steps inside, facing both women. The reality of the situation sinks in. It has been a long time since he has had his master's cooking. He tries to remember what it was like, but finds he has no memory of it at all. He asks aloud if he said something strange. Krull looks away, muttering that he and her other disciples do nothing but complain. Blanc takes a tentative bite of the prepared meal. His expression remains neutral, but a single, definitive word forms in his mind. Tasteless. Now seated at the table, he understands. The reason he has never had any interest in food is because of this. Krull asks for his opinion, and he replies diplomatically that he can taste the ingredients. The other woman nods in agreement. The woman then asks why he has come to the Light Kingdom. Blanc explains he simply wanted to see his master after a long time. As he speaks, he asks for the salt. Her disbelief boiling over, the woman points at Blanc and demands to know if he is truly Krull's disciple. Blanc, having seasoned his food, takes another bite and casually mentions he was also hoping to do some sightseeing. Krull looks at him, questioning the idea. His nonchalance makes the woman erupt, shouting that he looks weak and spaced out. Krull simply chuckles, confirming that he is, in fact, only an 8th rank adventurer. The revelation that a disciple of the great Krull is such a low rank leaves the woman stunned. He calmly points out that the forest surrounding them is so dangerous that no ordinary adventurer could even get close. He then looks directly at the woman and asks how she managed to find her way to the house. She is struck silent, the implication of his question dawning on her. He watched as the other disciple, her voice sharp, confronted Krull. She demanded to know why Krull herself had gone to greet someone. Krull, holding a wine glass with a placid smile, simply stated that she was fulfilling the wish of her beloved disciple, as any good master would. The tension eased as they sat at the table. Blanc, breaking the formal silence, asked Regina why she was so interested in the Black Emperor, noting that they had probably never met. Regina explained that years ago, the Black Emperor had saved her life. She was so inspired by his figure that she sought out Krull to become her disciple, hoping to one day fight alongside him. A memory of that first meeting surfaced, a younger Regina, overwhelmed with emotion, bowing deeply in gratitude. Krull recalled being surprised by Regina's intense passion. Regina added that to meet the Black Emperor again, she had endured any and all training to become a worthy individual. Back in the present, tears streamed down Regina's face. Blanc, his expression softening, asked when the Black Emperor had saved her. She mentioned the tragedy of Mulan Park, a name that sparked a flicker of recognition in his eyes. She revealed that she was a survivor of that very event. The cause of the tragedy was the Grade 1 designated monster, the Undead King. This supreme undead being was impervious to attacks other than the light attribute and could command other undead creatures. The memory of the assault was horrific. Those slain by the Undead King were reanimated into its forces, turning them against their former comrades. With 5 such monsters appearing at once, leading an army of over 10,000, they annihilated the duchy in a single night. The guild, recognizing the extreme urgency, deployed the Black Emperor. Regina concluded her tale, her voice heavy with sorrow. She explained that although the Black Emperor's arrival saved her, her family had all perished. That loss drove her to become an adventurer, determined to prevent anyone else from suffering the same fate. Looking at her, Blanc quietly acknowledged her struggle, telling her she had worked hard. Later that night, with Regina having succumbed to drink and emotion, Krull found Blanc in the kitchen. She declared that it was a long-awaited reunion and that he should join her for a drink. As she poured wine into his glass, Krull casually remarked that with his poison resistance, he likely wouldn't get drunk anyway. She then settled down and asked him a simple question. How was his new life? While sharing a meal, Aoi asks Bran if he's enjoying his time in Claret. She brings up the concerning news that the 3rd Demon Lord is in town, noting it's a significant threat for adventurers. She asks if he fought this individual, and Bran, looking flustered, confirms that he did, admitting their opponent was incredibly strong. As if on cue, Krull playfully appears behind them, announcing that despite the circumstances, they ultimately reconciled. Aoi quietly pours a drink, reflecting on the recklessness of the situation. Returning his attention to Aoi, he confirms that aside from that incident, his life is indeed very fulfilling. He explains that he's been taking on many requests. He elaborates further, listing his recent activities with enthusiasm, making many colleagues, accepting quests with them, going out for meals, learning about the town, and even being asked by the guild to train new recruits. He sheepishly adds that he's already earned the nickname Errand Boy, despite his limited activity, much to the amusement of Aoi, who notes he's even popular with the townspeople. Later, Bran notices Krull enjoying a drink and asks why it seems so delicious to her. She chuckles, remarking with surprise that he is becoming able to read other people's emotions. Bran is taken aback by the sudden observation. Her demeanor then shifts to serious. She asks him what he felt when he saw the victims at the Demon Lord's facility. Caught off guard by the abrupt change in topic, Bran stammers, searching for the right words. As he struggles to articulate his feelings, Krull tells him to take his time and explain. He begins by saying that his life in Claret has been fun and exciting every day, which made the experience all the more jarring. A memory of the captive women flashes through his mind. He clutches his chest, describing the sensation. He explains that it felt like a nauseating lump was churning deep inside him. His vision turned red, and in that moment, he lost all composure, unable to suppress his surging killing intent. Looking at his mentor with genuine distress, he asks what is wrong with him, confessing that he has never experienced anything like it before. Krull listens to his account with a calm, knowing expression. She reassures him, explaining that while his confusion is understandable, he shouldn't worry. By witnessing such a horrific scene, she clarifies he simply came to know emotions he had never felt before: sorrow, indignation, and anger. She concludes that this terrible thing he felt was simply emotion. She leans in close to Bran, her voice a soft murmur. She tells him that being able to feel things, good or bad, is a sign of his growth, and it makes her incredibly happy. As Bran quietly processes this, she playfully suggests they spend the night together, an offer he promptly refuses due to the lack of space. Nearby, Aoi observes with a smile, remarking how wonderful it is that he has learned to worry about others. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room, a group of individuals convenes. An aggressive, spiky-haired man named Jairu slams his fist down, demanding to know why they haven't found the one who dared to challenge the Demon Society. He angrily blames another member for his faulty barrier magic, but a man with glasses, Jariuza, tells him to calm down, stating it hasn't been confirmed that their existence has been exposed. Jairu seethes, recalling the tormented face of the one who broke through. Jairu directs his frustration towards a woman slumped over the table, reminding her that her own research lab in the Bile Mountains was the one destroyed. She laments that they've hit a dead end, as there are no reports of any such powerful adventurer in the area. Defeated, Jariuza turns to a calm, horned man at the head of the table and asks for his opinion. The horned man, Dariusu, touches his chin thoughtfully. He confirms that while they lack definitive proof, he does have a theory. He elaborates that the information came to him from Lilith Sama, obtained by chance during the search for the Black Dragon's killer. Jairu reacts with irritation, realizing they were discovered simply by bad luck. Dariusu then drops a critical piece of information. The Black Emperor is the former rank 0 adventurer who quit. He adds that this makes him a rank 0 powerhouse with no surveillance and his whereabouts unknown. The revelation stuns both Jairu and Jariuza. Dariusu continues, voicing the chilling possibility that the Black Emperor could be their lost experiment. Number 6. A memory surfaces of the Sword Saint herself, bringing the Black Emperor to the Adventurers Guild. Jariuza realizes with dawning horror that if Number 6 wasn't actually killed by the Sword Saint, as they had heard, the thought shatters Jariuza's composure. His body begins to dissolve into a grotesque slime as he raves about his masterpiece. He screams that they must capture the Black Emperor at once to continue his research, questioning how it's possible when the guild has failed to find him for 3 years. He remembers that the country is under Dariusu's jurisdiction, and that the Sword Saint is also present there. Jariuza looks up, his face a mask of crazed determination. He points out that since they weren't directly involved in the experiment, they don't even know his face or magic signature. He asks despairingly if they should just give up. Dariusu calmly dismisses the notion. He instructs the transforming Jariuza to first confirm the Black Emperor's registered magic at the Adventurers Guild headquarters. As Jariuza's body contorts into a monstrous new form, he laughs, declaring that with his current power, it will be simple. He vows that Number 6 will be his. Dariusu watches the transformation with an amused, confident smile. At a table, the conversation turns to Bran and Aoi's shared circumstances. Krull notes that both Bran, the former S-rank hero known as the Black Emperor, and Aoi, who rose to first rank with astonishing speed, were seen as oddities by those around them. Because of this, neither had ever been able to form a proper party. Bran stares blankly, the concepts of friends and companions feeling foreign to him. Aoi quickly dismisses the idea, insisting she isn't bothered by such things, while Bran simply declares that if they are colleagues, then it's settled. Krull, however, gently rebukes Aoi, explaining that if she truly wants to broaden her horizons in life, she cannot remain unchanged forever. She implies that this partnership is a necessary step for her growth. In a quiet moment of reflection, Krull recalls her reasoning. She had proposed they act together precisely so that they could learn what it means to be companions. Watching them from afar, she feels a sense of relief, noting that they seem to be getting along surprisingly well. Her thoughts drift to how she initiated this, apologizing to a white bird for the sudden summons before asking it to deliver her message, as always. The bird takes flight, soaring towards the cloaked and hooded figure of the Black Emperor, Bran, who receives the call to action. Holding a single white feather left behind by her messenger, Krull smiles softly. She observes that Bran's entire demeanor has changed. He has a genuinely happy expression now. She muses that he must be truly enjoying his second chance at life. That happiness, she resolves, is something she will protect. Her expression hardens with determination as she stands with Bran and Aoi before the gates of a great city. She vows that she will never allow the Demon Association to interfere with the freedom he is now savoring. Upon entering the city, Bran is immediately struck with awe. He stands frozen in the middle of a bustling thoroughfare, gazing at the towering buildings and lively crowds with wide-eyed wonder, letting out an audible gasp. His wonder quickly turns into boyish excitement. He points at everything, exclaiming over the size of the crowd and the novelty of the sights. He eagerly asks Regina what everything is, amazed by the sheer number of things he has never seen before. Amused, Aoi pats his back, telling him to calm down. As they continue their tour, Krull presents a jar of what appears to be candied fruit. She teases Bran, suggesting that as her former disciple from the Imperial capital, such simple treats shouldn't be so novel to him. Bran looks away, slightly embarrassed, admitting that it's been a long time and the sight makes him nostalgic before adding that that's not the proper way to eat them. She smiles at his remark, holding out the jar. She reminds him that he had, in fact, mentioned wanting to go sightseeing. The comment jogs Bran's memory. He realizes he did say that, but it was so long ago that the wish had been all but forgotten. He offers a flustered thank you to Krull, who pats his shoulder and explains that since she was asked to, she'll accompany him. With that settled, she leads him before a grand, multi-story building, declaring that their first order of business is to secure a base of operations. As they enter, a well-dressed concierge greets them with a bow, welcoming Regina-sama. Krull casually explains to Bran that she uses this convenient and clean establishment often. The interior is even more opulent, sparkling with the light of a grand chandelier, reflecting off plush furniture and polished surfaces. At the front desk, Krull tells Bran not to think about payment. She reminds him that he's only a grade 8 adventurer while she is grade 1, and thus earns plenty. She declares that as long as she's looking after him, he has no need to worry about money. Bran, taken aback, silently questions if this is some unwritten rule based on rank and worries that refusing might make him seem suspicious. Krull dismisses his hesitation with a confident, "Leave it to me." She then suggests they drop their luggage in a room and go find something delicious to eat, a proposal that immediately excites Bran. Moments later, they arrive on a bustling street. "We're here," Krull announces, while Bran looks around, clearly confused about their destination. He sees they are in a crowded marketplace. Krull grins, noting the popularity of a nearby stall, and wonders aloud what could be so delicious. Bran simply looks on, questioning what they're selling. The answer is soon in his hands, a steaming pastry. His eyes widen as he realizes this is the capital's famous specialty, the feather python's feather robe wrap. He took a bite of the wrap Krull offered. As he chewed, she explained with a smile that it was a local delicacy made from the thinly sliced meat of the feather python, a creature found only near the capital. She added that since it is just a grade 8 monster, it serves as a good source of income for lower-ranked adventurers. While she spoke, the flavor exploded in his mouth, leaving him momentarily stunned. He managed to mutter that she wasn't listening, but his protest was lost in the overwhelming taste. Krull takes a large, joyful bite of a local delicacy, proclaiming its excellence. She insists that upon returning to the Imperial capital, this is the first thing one must eat. Turning to Blanc, she eagerly presents the food to him, asking for his opinion. His face contorts into a look of intense, pained concentration. Noticing his strange expression, Krull leans in and asks what's wrong with his face. She asks if he didn't like it, but he begins muttering a long, poetic analysis of the food. He describes the burst of meat juices, the special sauce blending with vegetable broth, the light texture of the white meat, and the beautiful harmony of flavors. His elaborate praise leaves Krull utterly bewildered, as she has no idea what he is talking about. He cuts his own description short, turning to her with a serious expression to state simply that it is extremely delicious. Relieved, Krull replies that's all that matters. Overcome with emotion, he buries his face in his hands, lamenting the wasted time he spent unaware of such a delicacy. His dramatic reaction earns a hearty laugh from Krull. Now completely won over, he stands before the food stall, enthusiastically telling the vendor he will be back to eat again, perhaps even for every meal. Krull, pleased that he enjoyed a recommendation, smiles. With their bellies full, Krull feels generous. She offers to take care of his adventure requests and even help him rank up. With a piece of food still in his mouth, Blanc looks at her and states plainly, "I decline." Her offer leaves him momentarily stunned. He quickly composes himself, offers a polite thank you for the meal, and begins to walk away. The surrounding adventurers are aghast, unable to believe someone would refuse direct mentorship from a first-rank adventurer. Krull, equally shocked, yells after him, demanding to know why he would turn down such an attractive offer. He pauses, explaining that he is perfectly content with his current rank and, in fact, has no desire to advance. His statement leaves Kroll completely baffled. He clarifies that this is precisely why he typically accepts only mundane requests. He points with a confident glint in his eye, declaring that the kind of work he's interested in is herb gathering. His simple declaration leaves Kroll utterly aghast. She shouts in disbelief, questioning why he would focus on such menial requests. As he turns away, Blanc casually asks why she's blushing, then proceeds to list other simple jobs he'd be happy to take. Luggage carrier, cleaner, lost item finder, shopper, and even helping with junk disposal. Still processing his words, Kroll asks if he's truly only interested in miscellaneous jobs. Blanc thoughtfully touches his chin, confirming that he is, and adds that he finds the menial quests available in a large city like this to be quite interesting. With his mind made up, he exclaims, "All right." He then points forward decisively, calling out to someone named Reena and announcing that they're going to accept a quest. He starts walking off at a brisk pace, leaving a stunned Kroll behind, who can only shout for him to wait. They arrive before the grand structure of the Adventurers Guild headquarters. Kroll, still panting, thinks to herself that Blanc is certainly audacious, a worthy disciple for her. Blanc, however, looks up at the building with a sense of distant memory, remarking that he'd almost forgotten what it looked like, despite it having been his base of operations during his time as the Black Emperor. As they step into the bustling main hall, filled with adventurers, Kroll notes that this is an unfamiliar environment for her. She realizes this must be how Blanc can accept quests without revealing his true identity. Blanc explains the system to her. Unlike in the town of Claret, here at the headquarters, quests are accepted by placing one's adventurer plate into a special device. This device only reads the magic embedded within the plate itself, not the user's identity, allowing him to take on jobs anonymously. His explanation is interrupted by the chatter of nearby adventurers. They're talking about a figure known as Shunrai, or Instant Thunder. They remark that she has finally returned after being secluded in the mountains for 4 years and praise her for defeating the holy Thunder Beast. Kroll leans in, asking if Shunrai is the Regina he was talking about. Meanwhile, the other adventurers continue to admire Regina, calling her beautiful and speculating that she must be close to reaching rank 0. Blanc confirms to Kroll that he was referring to Regina, noting that she's considered a promising talent, second only to the Black Emperor, but dismisses it as a mere formality. Kroll asks if he dislikes her. Blanc clicks his tongue, muttering that he finds her annoying, being so popular as to have a nickname. Nearby, another adventurer warns his companion to give up on recruiting her, as she apparently doesn't join parties with anyone. He is taken aback as Kroll gently touches his face, her expression earnest. She explains that she never sought attention for its own sake. Her only goal has been to catch up to him, the Black Emperor. In her mind, there is nothing special about her actions. Her words leave him momentarily confused. Misreading his silence, Kroll's face flushes with indignation. She snaps back, questioning if he finds her bashful and warning him not to make light of her feelings, her anger rising. Before the argument can escalate, his gaze is pulled away, drawn upward. He looks up at the towering structure before them, a single word of awe escaping his lips. Amazing. He is staring at the guild's main quest board, a truly monumental wall, stretching stories high and plastered with an overwhelming number of request parchments. A spark of excitement ignites in his eyes. He turns to Kroll, asking if there's any limit to how many quests he can accept. Without waiting for a full answer, he scrambles up one of the tall ladders lining the wall, moving with a speed that startles her. From the floor, she watches him, still perplexed, asking if he truly intends to take on such trivial requests. He looks down, an enormous bundle of parchments already in his arms, and explains that it's precisely because no one else wants them that they must be done. With that, his mind is made up. As he holds the ridiculously large pile of accepted quests, a cold sweat breaks out on Kroll's brow. She stares, utterly bewildered, a single thought echoing in her mind. Something about this is profoundly, fundamentally wrong. In a sun-drenched garden, Reena slumps to the ground, utterly defeated. She clutches a handful of weeds, her face a mask of frustration as she questions why a grade 1 adventurer like herself is stuck doing such a task. Her outburst catches Blanc's attention. He glances over, acknowledging that her attire and reputation certainly seem ill-suited for menial labor. He internally admits that this isn't the kind of request he had anticipated either, feeling the drag of the tedious work. Reena's frustration boils over. She leaps to her feet, shouting about the indignity of Instant Thunder being forced to pull weeds. As she yells, Blanc quickly warns her to be careful, pointing out that she's about to yank a delicate flower sprout, not a weed. She retorts that it's not about the weeding itself. After long hours, the work is finally complete. Reena collapses dramatically onto Blanc's lap, letting out a huge sigh of relief and exclaiming that they're finally done. Blanc, looking equally tired, simply says, "Good work." Later, as they rest, their elderly client thanks them. Blanc notes that despite her complaints, Reena saw the job through. Reena insists it's only because a request is a request, grumbling that fighting a holy thunder beast would have been less exhausting. Blanc wryly agrees, musing that this task was on par with battling a grade 1 monster. The woman approaches them with a gentle smile, asking if they are tired after making her garden so beautiful. With a weary sigh, Reena admits that she is exhausted. Blanc, ever polite, assures the woman that he is fine. She brings them refreshments and explains the garden's significance. It was a place her late husband cherished, and they used to tend the flowers together in the very same flower bed. Both Blanc and Reena listen quietly, their expressions softening. The woman continues, saying she is too old to manage the weeding now. She had requested help from the Adventurers Guild, but knew that such a low priority, urgent task was unlikely to be picked up by busy adventurers. Hearing this, Reena's earlier frustration melts away into understanding. Standing before the pristine garden, the woman's eyes well up with tears of gratitude. She tells them how truly happy she is to see her husband's beloved garden looking beautiful once more, all thanks to them. As dusk settles, the two adventurers walk away from the town. Reena turns to Blanc, her tone now serious and inquisitive. She asks if he always takes on jobs like this, menial tasks. He confirms that he does, prompting her to wonder why. He thoughtfully considers Reena's question, touching his chin. He muses that perhaps it's because he can truly feel that he's being useful to someone. He clarifies that he isn't seeking gratitude, but if he must work, he wants it to be for the sake of others. He continues, explaining that while adventurers are known for fighting monsters and protecting towns, smaller, less glorious requests often get ignored. He acknowledges that there are people struggling with everyday troubles, hidden behind these larger quests, and he wants to do what he can to lessen their burdens. His earnest words strike a chord with Reena. She turns away abruptly, her face flushing with an emotion she seems unable to hide. Noticing her sudden change, Blanc leans in with concern. He asks what's wrong, pointing out that her cheeks have turned bright red and questioning if she is all right. She turns back towards him, her previous embarrassment replaced by a warm, genuine smile. With newfound conviction, she admits that maybe taking on errand requests isn't so bad after all. Her change of heart catches Blanc by surprise. He then playfully suggests that she should join him and master the path of the errand boy. Reena retorts that while she might not join, the title certainly seems to suit him. As night blankets the landscape, the scene shifts to a dark, wooded path. A young boy confidently tells his older sister not to worry about being so far from the village. He boasts that he'll become an adventurer and easily defeat weak monsters like goblins and slimes, promising to always protect her. The boy, holding a large orange, continues his one-sided conversation, saying they can eat it after dinner. He turns to look at his sister, but she is gone. He is alone on the path. He murmurs, looking around in confusion. A sinister shadow with long, sharp claws emerges from the darkness behind him. The boy's eyes widen in terror as the shape looms over him, his call for his sister dying in his throat. In the grasslands of Claret, Reena holds up a plant for Blanc, identifying it as Hylia grass. She asks if he's seen it before, to which he replies that he's seen it often but never paid it any mind. As Aoi and a small girl watch from a distance, Blanc internally questions the nature of this newbie training. The scene shifts to a memory at the Adventurers Guild, where Reena asks if she is truly suited for this role. She explains that thanks to Blanc's guidance, her knowledge of medicinal herbs has grown, improving her quest success rate. Consequently, the guild has decided to make newbie education a formal, recurring request for her. Her colleague, Lena, enthusiastically encourages her, noting that Reena's diligent work has earned her a great reputation. Lena insists the guild wants her for the job, adding that the other Blanc is difficult to work with since he only accepts menial tasks. Back in the present, Reena demonstrates the proper harvesting technique, instructing Blanc to cut near the root with a knife. She mentions that accepting the guild's offer would lead to faster promotions due to the high contribution value of the quests, and she declares her own commitment to doing her best. She then asks why he's being so meticulous when simply pulling the plant would be faster. Blanc explains that while Hylia grass is a resilient and common herb, pulling it up by the root could prevent it from growing back, thus ensuring there is a supply for the next harvest. His thoughtful answer impresses Reena. She smiles, saying it's good he thinks so deeply about things and that she is learning a lot. Blanc smiles back, pleased with her reaction. Feeling accomplished, she then suggests they extend their trip slightly and venture into the demon forest, a proposal that catches Blanc by surprise. As they approach the foreboding woods, Blanc comments on its strange atmosphere. Reena confirms it's the place where the third demon lord is said to be sealed, but assures him a recent anomaly has been resolved. Their goal is a shallow part of the forest where Aurum fruit grows. From a distance, Aoi watches and reminisces about her own past efforts. Without warning, a massive, snake-like monster lunges from the trees with a piercing hiss. Reena screams for Blanc to get down as he stumbles backward, his face a mask of shock and surprise. He looks up from the ground to see Reena standing protectively in front of him, her sword already drawn. She calmly informs him that while this area is safer than the outskirts, monsters still appear. She found her mind drifting back to her own beginnings as a novice. She remembered looking up to her mentor, Arya, expressing awe at her proficiency in both combat and gathering herbs. Arya simply accepted the praise. In that moment, Reena recalled her own feelings of helplessness, having finally become an adventurer but feeling utterly useless. But Arya had not let her despair. She had leaned in, assuring Reena that with effort, she would certainly grow stronger. Wiping away a tear, a younger Reena had agreed. Back in the present, she finished her story for Blanc, explaining that she too was completely clueless at first, but her senior taught her the tricks for gathering and sensing presences, allowing her to improve little by little. As they continued their walk through the forest, Reena admitted that while she had never met the senior who trained Arya, she was certain they must be an amazing person. Her words conjured an image of youthful ambition. Two young girls vowing to one day become top-rank adventurers and defeat the Demon King. A fond smile touched Reena's lips as she spoke of this mentor. She described him to Blanc as an incredibly kind and wonderful person, explaining that he was currently away visiting his hometown, but promising an introduction upon his return. With renewed energy, she called out for them to move on to the next location, and the two ran ahead with excitement. Even as they moved, her thoughts lingered. Her gaze drifted towards the sky as she thought of her current student, Blanc. But her mind quickly returned to her absent mentor, and she wondered to herself what he might be doing at that very moment.